Chapter 5785. Lin Yi smiled faintly. I'll definitely come back within a year. If I can find that cheap master of mine, Zhang Liju, I might be able to come back even earlier. A year, of course, referred to the agreement with the center. At this time, everyone was actually blaming Lan Xiao in their hearts. Why couldn't she set a shorter time for the agreement, like signing it once a month or something like that? If Lin Yi knew what they were thinking, he wouldn't know whether to laugh or cry. He definitely wouldn't sign a 1-month agreement. If he had the time, he might as well just go against them. Boss, I'll definitely protect my brothers and sisters-in-law. Even if I have to sacrifice my life, I won't let anything happen to them. Don't worry, boss. Chun Dongcheng patted his chest and said loudly. Originally, he had always called Lin Yi Grandmaster, but this way, everyone in the common world would be at the same level as his Grandmaster. This seniority was too pitiful, so Lin Yi just let him call him Grandmaster like Linguza. Qin Dongcheng, of course, was overjoyed. Although he was older than the others, going from the grandson generation to the younger brother generation was nothing to be unhappy about. Calling them brothers and sisters-in-law was no problem at all. Lin Yi nodded to Qin Dongcheng. You'll have to worry about this. The next time I come back, I'll make your strength increase even more. Also, the thing I gave you must be careful. If you meet Shui Jianfeng, if you can't suppress him, you'll have to rely on this. Yes, boss. I understand. Chan Dongqing nodded respectfully. The thing Lin Yi was talking about was a killing aura of the 5 elements that he had condensed. He used the method of condensing qi bombs to preserve it for Qin Dongqing to use as a trump card against Shui Jianfeng. However, this thing was very unstable. Lin Yi only dared to condense a small amount of 5 elemental killing qi to prevent it from exploding before he could use it. In any case, he just needed to catch Shui Jianfeng off guard and control him. Then Jing Jing and Big Brother Lin Yi will be leaving. I think we will meet again very soon. So, just pretend that we're going to an island for a vacation, and we will see each other again when we come back. Am I right? All right, everyone, take care. Bye-bye. Han Jingjing smiled and waved at everyone. Then, she and Lin Yi transformed into their primordial spirits and activated the teleportation back to Heaven Island. Lin Yi was originally holding Han Jingjing's hand, but after transforming into a primordial spirit, he naturally couldn't continue to hold onto her hand. Both of their primordial spirits were compressed and condensed to the extreme, instantly penetrating the barrier of the plane. After a violent dizziness, Lin Yi felt his body sink slightly. Obviously, his primordial spirit had returned. Because he was used to the state of the primordial spirit body, he still felt a little uncomfortable after returning to his body. The first thing Lin Yi did when he regained consciousness was to scan the area with his divine sense. It had become his instinct, and many times, this small action could save his life. Of course, the place where he was now was absolutely safe. The Tiandan Pavilion was an industry that he built himself. Not to mention that this was Middle Island. Whether it was the will of heaven or Okuda, they were all big shots of Middle Island. Tian-chan, I'm back. Lin, he didn't open his eyes. The corners of his mouth slightly hooked up as he said softly. Tian-chan, who was sitting on the side with her elbows on the coffee table and her palms supporting her chin, staring at Lin Yi, was suddenly shocked. She couldn't believe it and widened her eyes, for fear that this was an illusion caused by missing him too much. But the faint smile at the corner of Lin Yi's mouth made Tian-chan know that this really didn't seem to be an illusion. Ah, Lin Yi, you bad thing, are you really coming back? Hurry up and open your eyes. If you dare to lie to me, be careful that I kick you. Tian-chan suddenly rushed to the bedside and wanted to reach out and touch Lin Yi, but she was afraid that she would disturb him. For a time, she could only speak in confusion. Lin Yi's faint smile became more and more obvious, and his eyes slowly opened. The deep pupils exuded warm longing. I just came back, and you want to kick me. To be honest, when I was away, did you come to kick me every day? Lin Yi opened his legs, walked down from the bed, and said with a smile. There was a burst of crisp, cracking sounds like beans being fried. His body, which hadn't moved for a long time, suddenly surged with an indescribable feeling of comfort. Tian Chan's pretty face was slightly red. She snorted and said, "Yeah, I came to kick you for no reason. Who told you to go away for so long and not come back?" Lin Yi just smiled and didn't speak. Of course, Tian Chan was joking. She didn't have enough time to care about Lin Yi every day. How could she come to kick him for no reason? His divine sense entered the space of the jade pendant to take a look. Languza was really fine. Lin Yi was also relieved, but he didn't plan to release Languza for the time being. After all, things like the space of the jade pendant, it was fine if Tian Chan and the others knew. But if it was known by others, it would be very troublesome. On the heavenly stage island, Lin Yi's strength at the peak of the profound ascension late stage was far from being powerful. When he came back after going out to sea next time, the origin of Languza could be rationalized. In addition, Jiao Yazi really disappeared again. Fortunately, Lin Yi chatted with him for a long time before he left. The next time he went to the secular world, there shouldn't be any unhappiness, right? In contrast, the ghost azure dragon's spirit showed signs of awakening. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. When there was time, Lin Yi would have a good chat with him. While Lin Yi was in a daze, Tian Chan pulled the rope of the bell below. Although she wanted to spend more time with Lin Yi alone, Sydney was worried about Lin Yi just like her. As a good sister, she must inform Sydney as soon as possible. Hearing the bell ring, Sydney, who was busy downstairs, hurried up. She was still thinking that the last time the bell rang, it was Lin Yi who had resumed his cultivation state. Did he wake up this time? When she saw Lin Yi standing there with a smile, she knew that she guessed right, but she didn't know what to do for a while. She could only stand at the door and smile happily. "Sydney, what are you standing there for?" As a little wife, seeing that her husband woke up, shouldn't you come and serve him quickly? Tian Chan smiled mischievously. When Lin Yi came back, it seemed that everything became better. She was also in the mood to joke with her good sister. Chapter 5786. Lin Yi is back. Lin Yi, little junior brother. Shanghai Laner rushed in. She had been accompanying Han Jingjing's body next door. When she heard movement here, she immediately ran over. "Lan, you are also here." Lin Yi greeted her with a smile. Then he pulled Sydney in and said, "Sit down and talk. I haven't been back for a long time. There are a lot of things I don't know. Tell me about it." Shanghai Laner was originally in high spirits. Suddenly she was startled and said, "Hey, Lin Yi Jingjing didn't come back with you? How come she hasn't woken up yet?" Lin Yi also felt a little strange. His divine sense had already discovered that Han Jingjing was next door. She was still in a cultivation posture. Obviously, her primordial spirit hadn't returned. Perhaps because his primordial spirit was stronger, he woke up first. That's why he didn't say anything. Now that Shanghai Lena mentioned it, Lin Yi felt that something was wrong. The return of the projected primordial spirit shouldn't have much to do with the strength of the primordial spirit. He had been awake for a while. Why hadn't Han Jingjing woken up yet? "I'll go see Jingjing. She came back with me. She should be able to wake up soon," Lin Yi said with some uncertainty. Then he quickly walked next door. Shanghai Laner, Tian Chan, and Sydney hurriedly followed. When they heard that Han Jingjing came back with Lin Yi, they couldn't help but worry in their hearts. Not to mention that Han Jingjing had a good relationship with them. Just the fact that she risked her primordial spirit to save Lin Yi was enough to make these sisters admire her. Now, they certainly didn't want anything to happen to Han Jingjing. In a flash, the four arrived at Han Jingjing's room. Lin Yi frowned slightly. He used his divine sense to sense Han Jingjing's sea of consciousness. There was no trace of her primordial spirit. It seemed that she hadn't returned. What happened? They had clearly returned together, So why was Jing Jing like this? Where did her primordial spirit go? Lin Yi couldn't help but feel a little anxious. Even if Han Jingjing's speed was slower, she should have returned by now. Could it be that something went wrong in the process of teleporting back? If Han Jingjing had projected normally before, Lin Yi wouldn't have been so worried. However, she had used some tricks to deceive the projection, so it wasn't surprising that something went wrong when she came back. Because of this, Lin Yi became more and more worried. Lin Yi, what's going on? Why didn't Jing Jing wake up? Is there a problem? Shangguan Laner was a little anxious. Her relationship with Han Jingjing was very good. After all, they had been together for a period of time. Han Jingjing's position in her heart was no different from Ning Xuefei's. Lin Yi was also very worried, but he didn't dare show it. He could only force himself to calm down and say, "There's no problem. Jing Jing might be weaker than me, so it will take longer for her to return. You don't have to worry. She will wake up soon." Shangguan Laner looked at Lin Yi with some doubt. However, since he didn't seem to have lied to Miss Shangguan before, she finally believed what Lin Yi said. Tian Chan also said, "Jing Jing will be fine. Look, she is still in a cultivation posture. If something happened, she will be like Lin Yi last time and directly lie down." This explanation was obviously more convincing. Shangguan Lan, I heaved a sigh of relief and said, "That's right. Sister Tian Chan is right. If something had happened to Jing Jing, she would have been lying down by now." Speaking of this, Shangguan Laner turned to ask Lin Yi, "Lin Yi, what happened to you in the secular world? Why did Jing Jing have to run to save you?" Lin Yi wasn't too sure when he'd laid down and sat up, but he could roughly guess that when he'd fallen into unconsciousness, his main body had fallen into unconsciousness as well. And when he woke up, he'd be able to sit up and maintain his training posture. Speaking of which, his main body was already at the peak of the profound ascension late stage. It seemed that the upgrade of the spirit could really lead to the upgrade of the physical body. Unfortunately, the divine knowledge fruit was no longer useful to the current Lin Yi. When refining the divine knowledge tumor, the residual energy of the divine knowledge fruit accumulated in the tumor was far more than a normal divine knowledge fruit. Coupled with the energy formed by the refined divine knowledge tumor, it was normal for Lin Yi's spirit to be pushed to the profound ascension great perfection, but in the end it only advanced by one level and stopped at the peak of the profound ascension late stage. From then on, Lin Yi knew that the divine knowledge fruit was not unlimited to improve the level of the spirit. Even if he ate all the remaining divine knowledge fruits, it was estimated that his spirit could not continue to advance. Seeing Shanghai Laner's curious expression, Lin Yi could only shrug and say, "It's a long story. Don't worry about it now. I will slowly tell you the details after I went to the secular world. Do you want to call Big Brother and Okuda Island Master over to listen together?" Tian Chan also wanted to know what happened to Lin Yi, but she understood Lin Yi's thoughts. Since he was back, it was reasonable for him to inform the will of heaven and Okuda Island. Moreover, Han Jingjing had not woken up, so he had to ask the two of them. Tian Chan knew very well that this matter was definitely not so simple. She only mentioned it to reassure Shanghai Laner. Lin Yi nodded and said, "Yes, I really want to talk to these two brothers. When I went to the secular world this time, I found a place that seems to have a lot to do with the Heaven Stage Island. If I ask them, I may be able to find some clues." "That's good. I will immediately invite the two of them over." Tian Chan did not ask much and immediately arranged for people to invite the will of heaven and Okuda Island. Shanghai Laner was very curious and asked all sorts of questions. She was not very interested in places related to the Heaven Stage Island, but she was especially interested in things related to the secular world. When she was with Han Jingjing before, Shanghai Laner asked a lot about these things, but she still could not get tired of listening. Now that Lin Yi was here, the effect was naturally better. In order to divert Shanghai Laner's worry about Han Jingjing, Lin Yi did not refuse. He randomly picked some interesting things about the secular world and told her. Sure enough, she listened with great interest. Even Sydney, a person from the secular world, was the same. After all, she grew up in the Snow Valley. When it came to matters of the secular world, she really did not know much more than Shanghai Laner. Chapter 5787. Soon, the will of heaven and Okuda arrived together. Although it was a bit inappropriate to continue staying in Han Jingjing's room, Linny had no choice but to let them meet here in order to ask about her condition. Brother Okuda, Big Brother Tian, you are here. Seeing the two of them enter, Lin Yi stood up and cupped his fists to greet them. He knew that it was all thanks to them taking care of him. Otherwise, the Heavenly Dan Pavilion might not be able to maintain such a stable situation. It's good that Lin brothers are back. We were very worried. Okuda laughed and quickly stepped forward, shaking hands with Lin Yi. Previously, Okuda wanted to befriend Lin Yi, and this time, he did not dare to be negligent. There was not a second person on Heaven Stage Island who could project their soul into the secular world for so long. Moreover, during the process of soul projection, their body actually continuously leveled up, which was even more shocking. Okuda, of course, wanted to befriend Lin even more. The will of heaven did not say much, just smiled and greeted Lin Yi with a nod. With their relationship, it was not an exaggeration to say that they were friends of life and death, so there was no need to stand on ceremony. These days, thanks to Brother Okuda and Big Brother Tian for taking care of me, we are all on the same side, so there's no need to say those polite words. Lin invited the two to sit down and said with a smile, Yes, that's right. We are all brothers. There is no point in being polite. Okuda said with a hearty smile, but in his heart he was also secretly happy. If Lin Yi said that, then he really regarded him as one of his own, and his help for such a long time was not in vain. The will of heaven waved his hand and said, Those words really do not need to be said. What is the matter with Sister Jingjing? Why is she still not awake? For this girl who dared to use a soft armor to try soul projection, the will of heaven was very appreciative, so he opened his mouth to ask. Okuda also asked, Hey, didn't she take the initiative to stay in the secular world and not come back? If she came back with you, why hasn't she woken up yet? Lin Yi's heart sank. Okuda's words made his bad feeling more obvious. It seemed that there was really something wrong with Han Jingjing, but he did not know if there was a way to make up for it. Shangguan Laner, Tian Chan, and Sydney all showed a worried look. Okuda was a shrewd person, so he immediately understood that he had said something wrong, so he laughed and said, It seems that Sister Jingjing's sense of direction is not very good. She should be lost on her way back. But after a while, her soul will return to her body. As soon as Lin Yi heard this, he knew that Okuda was talking nonsense to comfort the three women, but he would not be stupid to ask about this matter. It was better to wait for this matter to be privately inquired from Okuda, but looking at Okuda's appearance, he seemed to have little understanding of the situation. Although Shanghai Laner and the others did not fully believe Okuda, they were slightly relieved. Lin Yi took the opportunity to change the topic. By the way, 2 elder brothers, this time when I went to the secular world, I accidentally found another plane. That place is called the Immemorial Small World. Although the spiritual chi is not as abundant as the Heavenly Stage Island, it is still quite good. Before I went there, the highest cultivation level there was the Yuanying Great Perfection, and only the profound ascension Sea Beast royal family can reach it. Oh, there is such a place. I have never heard of it. Okuda looked very interested, but in fact he did not care too much in his heart. This was completely to cooperate with Lin Yi to downplay the previous topic. The same was true of the will of heaven, a place where the highest cultivation level could only reach the Yuanying Great Perfection. It was just a low-level cultivation plane, nothing worth paying attention to. Although the strength of the immemorial small world was much stronger than the secular world, for them, there was not much difference between the immemorial small world and the secular world. Lin Yi smiled faintly. There is nothing strange about the immemorial small world. The strange thing is that the power structure of this immemorial small world is actually similar to our heavenly stage island. What do you mean by the power structure is similar? Okuda was startled and asked with some doubts. Let me put it this way. When I entered the immemorial small world, I became the Grand Master of the Blue Cloud sect of the North Island. And the Blue Cloud sect of the North Island is one of the sects of the North Island Alliance. The other two are the Soaring Sky sect of the North Island and the Xuanji sect of the North Island. Lin Yi smiled faintly, stretched out his palm, and bent 3 fingers in a row. Shanghai Laner was attracted by the names of these 3 sections. She was the granddaughter of the master of the Soaring Sky sect, Shanghai Tianhua. It would be strange if she did not pay attention to these 3 sects when she suddenly heard of these 3 sections. Lin Yi, is what you said true? Shanghai Laner could not help but ask, her big eyes blinking a few times. Lin Yi nodded and said, of course it is true. When I first heard about the 3 sects of the North Island Alliance, I also felt that it was incredible. No, I'm saying that when you go there, you become their martial granduncle? How? Shanghai Laner interrupted Lin Yi's words and asked curiously. Lin Yi did not know whether to laugh or cry. He thought that Shanghai Laner was curious about the coincidence of the names of the 3 sects of the North Island, but it was not the case at all. She was concerned about the fact that Lin Yi became the Grand Master. These 2 things were completely unrelated. It was not easy for the 2 of them to talk about it. Well, to be honest, these 2 things were actually the same thing. Lin Yi simply put the introduction of the other sects aside and continued. I became the Grand Master of the Blue Cloud sect of the North Island because their cultivation method is the cultivation method of our Blue Cloud Pavilion, and it is only an incomplete cultivation method and martial arts technique, so it takes twice the effort to cultivate with half the result. I completed the cultivation method and martial arts technique of the Blue Cloud sect and said that I am the primordial spirit of the ancient Blue Cloud sect. So I became the Grand Master. Shanghai Laner suddenly exclaimed, there is such a thing. Not only the name is the same, but even the cultivation method is the same? If that's the case, is the Soaring sect of the North Island the same as our Soaring Pavilion? Can I also become the Grand Master if I go there? Lin Yi smiled and thought to himself, not only are you the Grand Master of the Soaring sect of the North Island, but you are also the ancestor of the Shangguan family. That's right, it is indeed like this. The Soaring sect and Xuanji sect all cultivate the cultivation method and martial arts technique of our Soaring Pavilion and Xuanji Pavilion. Of course, they are all incomplete. In addition, there is the independent Shangguan family from the Soaring sect, as well as the Snow, Sword faction, 5 Elements sect, Okuda family, and so on. Lin Yi looked at Okuda with interest. When it came to the Okuda family, Lin Yi did not believe that he would not have any reaction. Chapter 5788. Lin brothers, you're saying that there's an Okuda family in the supreme ancient underworld? Furthermore, the cultivation techniques and martial skills they use are the remnants of our Okuda family's cultivation techniques? Okuda Shushu couldn't believe it, so he asked subconsciously. His status in the family wasn't low, but he had never heard of any supreme ancient underworld, and he had never heard of any other bloodline of the Okuda family wandering outside. That's right. And I can tell you that all the sects in the supreme ancient underworld that can be found on the Heaven Step Island are using the remnants of their respective sects' cultivation techniques, including the Okuda family and the Shangguan family. This was also what Lin Yi wanted to explain, so he also explained a few of the Okuda family's martial skills and cultivation techniques in detail. Okuda Shushu and the Will of Heaven were amazed, and they started guessing the relationship between the supreme ancient underworld and the Heaven Step Island. As for the bloodline that was wandering outside, Okuda Shushu was only surprised for a moment, but he didn't care about it. Their family had many branches, so it wasn't a big deal to have one more bloodline. However, the supreme ancient underworld was quite interesting. Brother Lin Yi, our Okuda family, is an ancient family. Although I don't know about this, the elders in our family might have some information about it. Once I go back and ask them, I might be able to find out more about the relationship between the supreme ancient underworld and the Heaven Step Island. Okuda Shushu understood that Lin wanted to get some information from them, so he immediately promised. On the other hand, the Will of Heaven shrugged his shoulders and said, "Brother, you know that I don't have any family to ask, and I've never heard about this before. So, I can only wait for the Okuda Island Master to go back and ask about it." Lin smiled faintly and said, "It's fine, these things aren't important. I'm just talking about it. You two don't need to worry too much about it." Since the two of them didn't know anything about the supreme ancient underworld, Lin was prepared to ask Shanghai Tianhua if there was a chance in the future. As for the elders of the Okuda family, he didn't have much hope. After talking for a while, Han Jingjing still did not respond. The only good news was that she still maintained her posture of cultivation. At least it meant that her primordial spirit did not die. At least it was a comfort. He ordered Tian Chan and Sydney to bring Shanghai Laner to prepare some food. Firstly, it was to entertain the Will of Heaven and Okuda. Secondly, it could be considered as a welcoming banquet for Lin Yi. Then, Lin Yi took the opportunity to ask the two about Han Jingjing's true thoughts. In the end, there was no change. The two of them still didn't know what was going on. They could only go back and look for information, ask others, and so on. You don't need to worry, as long as your sister-in-law's condition hasn't deteriorated. She will definitely be able to find her primordial spirit. I will definitely help you with this matter. Okuda patted Lin Yi's shoulder and solemnly promised. I hope so. Lin Yi sighed softly. Han Jingjing's primordial spirit projection was for his sake. If something happened to her, Lin Yi would never be able to forgive himself. Sydney came up and said that the banquet was ready. The three of them could only put down the problem of Han Jingjing, go down to eat something, and continue to talk about the supreme ancient underworld and the secular world. After 3 rounds of wine, Okuda asked curiously, Brother Lin Yi, your strength has now broken through to the peak of the mysterious ascension late stage. How did you do it? According to common sense, after reaching the mysterious ascension stage, it is very difficult to raise one's level. Even if there is a profound raising pill, it is not common, and you can't take it when you are unconscious, but you can automatically level up continuously. This really makes me, your big brother, shocked. Regarding this matter, the Will of Heaven was also very curious. He wanted to break through to the mysterious ascension stage, but the meridians in his body were all broken. If it wasn't for Lin Yi's help, he would be a cripple now. What the number 1 Yuanying stage cultivator, being able to fight across realms, it was useless. Now the Will of Heaven had finally succeeded in advancing to the early mysterious ascension stage, but the speed of his cultivation was quite slow. If Lin Yi could tell him how he leveled up, it should be very helpful to him. After Okuda finished speaking, he felt that it was a little inappropriate. This question had already involved the privacy of Lin Yi's cultivation, so he immediately said, Brother, it's better not to say this kind of thing, lest it is leaked. That would be bad. Lin Yi smiled faintly and waved his hand. There is nothing that can't be said, Brother Okuda. You don't have to worry so much. In fact, I have just mentioned that the people of the ancient small Jianghu mainly focus on refining their divine sense. They even use their divine sense to condense alchemy fire. In their place, as long as the level of their divine sense goes up, the strength of their body will also improve. So it is probably because of the increase in the level of my divine sense that my body also improved. So that's how it is. This is indeed an incredible method. It is worth learning from. Okuda said in amazement. The improvement of divine sense could actually lead to the improvement of the strength of the body. It was a pity that there was no cultivation method to cultivate divine sense. Otherwise, Okuda would want to start cultivating divine sense immediately. The expression of the Will of Heaven changed slightly. He should also be considering whether this method was suitable for him, but he was not sure at the moment. Lin Yi stretched out his hand in front of his eyes, clenched his fist, and then loosened it. After repeating this a few times, he couldn't help but have a strange feeling in his heart. After such a long time, he had become accustomed to the state of the soul body. Suddenly returning to the body was really a bit difficult to adapt. Originally, he thought that he would be more powerful after returning to his original body, but in fact, his primordial spirit could do everything that his original body could do after mastering the method of divine sense attack. In battle, he could even transform into the primordial spirit state and reverse the situation unexpectedly. So, what was the use of leaving this physical body? In fact, Lin Yi had really dug his own horns. If there was no body, no matter how strong the soul body was, it was still rootless duckweed. For example, Lin Yi had the soul of the azure dragon in the space of his jade pendant. He would tell Lin Yi how big a loss it was to lose the body. Okuda had a great interest in the cultivation method of the ancient small Jianghu, so he continued to ask a lot of questions in this regard. Lin Yi also answered without reservation. Of course, there was nothing substantial in it. Chapter 5789. As for the spiritual knowledge grassroots and spiritual knowledge fruits, they would definitely not be sold. The spiritual knowledge grassroots could be given to others. As for the spiritual knowledge fruit, although Lin Yi had no use for it, he was going to study it to see if there was a recipe for using the spiritual knowledge fruit as medicine. If he could refine it into medicinal pills, not only would the quantity be greatly increased, but the effect should also be much better than eating it directly. There was no other way. There were too many people around Lin Yi. The quantity he needed was not something that could be satisfied with a dozen spiritual knowledge fruits. Refining them into medicinal pills was the best choice. The will of heaven knew that Lin Yi was also a person who cultivated the gods' creation battle art. But because of the presence of Okuda, many questions could not be asked directly. He could only ask some things about the ancient Jianghu. He thought that if he talked to Lin Yi alone later, he might be able to make great progress in the cultivation of the gods' creation battle art. When the atmosphere between the guests and the host was harmonious, the restriction outside the Tiandan Pavilion was triggered. Because of the return of Lin Yi, Tiandan Pavilion closed early today. It was a little strange that someone would deliberately come to the door. Tian Chan went out to take a look, and her face became a little ugly. Zheng Dongsheng? What is he doing here? Lin Yi just scanned with his divine sense and said strangely, could it be that the medicine sect knew that he was back, so they came to say hello? It seemed that the relationship between the two sides was not that good, right? During the time that Lin Yi left, Tiandan Pavilion had been suppressed by the medicine sect in various ways. Not only did they come to make trouble on the surface, but they also made small moves in the dark. If it were not for Okuda's protection, Tian Chan and Tian Chan would not have been able to hold on. Tian Chan turned back and asked Lin Yi, let's ignore them? It's rare for us to be so happy. Let's not let these guys spoil the mood. Lin Yi didn't care. He knew that the medicine sect had always been at odds with the Tiandan Pavilion. However, he had just come back, so he didn't want to take revenge for the time being. It wouldn't be too late to do it in a few days. They didn't want to pay attention to it, but Zheng Dongsheng refused to give up. When he saw that no one came to open the door of the Tiandan Pavilion, he directly touched the barrier. If it weren't for Nakajima's rule that no one was allowed to attack the barrier of the shop, maybe he would have broken it by force. Lin Yi's face immediately turned cold. He didn't want to pay attention to these clowns. They were too arrogant. It seemed that if he didn't teach them a lesson, they wouldn't know who they were. The will of heaven stretched out his hand and said, "Brother, don't worry about it. I'll handle this matter. It's rare for you to come back. You should take a good rest." After saying that, the will of heaven got up and walked out. After opening the barrier, he brought Tian Chan and Sydney to stand outside the gate. "Zheng Dongsheng, what are you doing? If you want to buy medicinal pills, please come back tomorrow." As soon as Tian Chan came out, she said to Zheng Dongsheng unceremoniously, "These days, the Tiandan Pavilion had been suppressed by the Tiandan Pavilion led by Zheng Dongsheng. Now that Lin Yi was back, Tian Chan also had a backbone. Of course, she wouldn't be nice to Zheng Dongsheng. Tong Yongsoa, who was behind Zheng Dongsheng, shouted, "How dare you? Who are you? How dare you speak to Master Zheng like this? Don't you have any respect? No wonder your Tiandan pavilion is going downhill. Who are you?" The will of heaven interrupted Tong Yongsoa's words with a sneer. He took a step forward and said, "Who are you to say what my sister's identity is? If you dare to point fingers at my sister, believe it or not, I'll kill you right now." Tong Yongsoa's face turned pale, and he immediately shrank back. The fierce reputation of the will of heaven was not fake. If he said he would kill, then he would really kill. Zheng Dongsheng chuckled twice, reached out and clapped a few times, and said, "The Deputy Island Master of Heaven is really powerful. You dare to say that you will kill people from our famous medicine sect in the street. What? The whole Middle Island is under the control of the will of heaven?" Zheng Dongsheng, a 7th grade alchemist, was almost scared to my knees by your prestige. The will of heaven glared and said, "If you have something to say, say it quickly. Don't give me those useless things. What shit is a 7th grade alchemist? Is it that rare? You can try taking another step forward." Zheng Dongsheng's face was stiff. He really didn't dare to take a step forward like this. Who knew what the will of heaven would do? Tong Yongsuo braced himself to help Zheng Dongsheng out of the predicament and said, "Master Zheng is too lazy to talk to a boorish person like you. Tian Chan, listen. You know the situation of your Tiandan pavilion now. It's a compliment to say that it's deserted. How about giving your shop to our famous medicine sect? We won't treat you badly." The will of heaven laughed and said, "It's really funny. Your famous medicine sect is nothing. How dare you come here to disgust people? Get lost. Don't make me say it again. The will of heaven, we are here to talk about business. Do you want to use your identity for personal gain by doing this? Or do you want to bully others?" Zheng Dongsheng said with a sinister smile, "If they could get hold of Tian Xing's weakness and get him down, they could send his people up there. Then they could get rid of the acting island master of Okuda State. Then they would be able to control Middle Island." Therefore, Zheng Dongsheng now hoped that the will of heaven would make a mistake. Only when he made a mistake, the famous medicine sect would have a chance to play the strategy of killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Tian Chan said coldly, "My big brother has already said that our Tiandan pavilion will not do business with the famous medicine sect. Even if we want to buy something, we will buy the place of the famous medicine sect. You are not welcome here. Are you clear now? If you are clear, get lost." Zheng Dongsheng was slightly stunned. He wanted the will of heaven to continue to wrangle. He did not expect that Tian Chan would take over the conversation so decisively. For a moment, he did not know what to say. He could only give Tong Yongsuo a look. Tong Yongsuo understood. Although he was a little afraid of the will of heaven, he thought that this was the commercial street, and the will of heaven did not dare to make a move casually. His courage was finally strengthened. He rolled up his sleeves and stepped forward and shouted, "How dare you? A Tiandan pavilion that is about to close down dares to say that it wants to buy the place of our famous medicine sect. It's simply—" He did not have time to say anything, and it was estimated that he would not be able to say it again, because the will of heaven directly grabbed his neck and lifted him up. "The will of heaven, what are you doing? Put him down. If you dare to touch a hair of his, you are dead." Zheng Dongxing's expression changed suddenly, but he was secretly surprised. This guy was really fooled. As long as Zheng Dongxing could use this reason to impeach the will of heaven together with several people, at that time, it would be natural to force him to resign. The will of heaven glanced at Zheng Dongxing disdainfully and said, "Is that so? Then let me see how I will die." Chapter 5790. Zheng Dongxing was also shocked. He had never expected that the will of heaven would kill people on the street so fiercely. When he saw the will of heaven's cold eyes, he suddenly felt a chill in his heart and involuntarily took 2 steps back. for fear that the will of heaven would kill him again. The will of heaven said lightly, "This person violated the safety regulations of Middle Island." Tiandan Pavilion explicitly refused to let him enter. He also broke into the shop without permission, so he was killed on the spot. Take it as a warning. Remember, in Middle Island, no one can easily violate the shop. Zheng Dongsheng was dumbfounded. He originally thought that Tong Yongsua's death was not in vain. At least he could be used as a blackmail against the will of heaven, and this blackmail was very big, enough to kill the will of heaven. He did not expect that the will of heaven finally came up with such a high-sounding reason. Breaking in without permission was basically equivalent to robbery. Robbing a shop in Middle Island was indeed enough to kill him on the spot. But the question was, how did Tong Yongsua become robbing a shop? He would not dare to do so even if he had two guts. However, what the will of heaven said was not unreasonable. Tian Shan had made it clear that they were not welcome, but Tong Yongsua still foolishly took a step forward. They were originally at the place where the prohibition was triggered. By taking a step forward, they directly entered the actual range of Tiandan Pavilion. The will of heaven seized the opportunity to kill him, and the headless body was still lying in the line of life and death. Zheng Dongsheng looked at Tian Xing resentfully. He knew that Tong Yongsua had died for nothing because Tian Xing had his reasons and evidence. Although it was a bit unreasonable, there was really nothing wrong with it. At most, it was just making a fuss over a minor issue. What? You still don't want to get out of here? Do you want to collect his body? The will of heaven looked at Zheng Dongsheng coldly and said, his murderous intent was directed at Zheng Dongsheng. Zheng Dongsheng was not stupid. If he went over to absorb Tong Yongsua's corpse, what if Tian Xing said that he was in cahoots with Tong Yongsua and wanted to rob the Heavenly Dan Pavilion? That would be a great injustice. For his own safety, he definitely could not go over. The will of heaven. Do you think you can do whatever you want just because you're the deputy island master of Middle Island? Everyone's eyes are watching. What exactly is going on is not up to you to decide. You're not the only deputy island master on Middle Island. Zheng Dongsheng didn't dare to go forward, but he didn't leave either. Instead, he continued to provoke them. Of course, Zheng Dongsheng would never enter the Tiandan Pavilion without Tian Chan's consent. As long as the will of heaven dared to come out and touch him, he had enough reasons to impeach the will of heaven. If there could be one more position of deputy island master, the power of the medicine sect in Middle Island would be even more stable. The will of heaven said disdainfully, do whatever you want. Take your dog back first. After that, he kicked Tong Yongsua's headless body directly to Zheng Dongsheng. Knowing that this cowardly bandit didn't dare to come over to collect the body, the will of heaven was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. Tian Chan, let's go in and continue eating. There's no need to pay attention to this petty person. The will of heaven called out to Tian Chan and prepared to go in. Although the will of heaven had always been bold and unrestrained, he was also very meticulous. He had seized the opportunity to kill Tong Yongsua, which was equivalent to cutting off one of Zheng Dongsheng's arms. Furthermore, Zheng Dongsheng couldn't find any evidence to use against him. This was already a small victory. Moreover, he was in a good mood since Lin Yi was back. It wouldn't be too late to teach Zheng Dongsheng a lesson in the future. Deputy Island Master Heaven is so impressive, someone said coldly from afar. At the same time, they were approaching quickly. The will of heaven stopped in his tracks. He turned around and said calmly, Wu Miao, are you going to meddle in this too? Zheng Dongsheng's face lit up with joy. He quickly cupped his fists and said, Island Owner Wu, you've come at the right time. This Tianxing is too arrogant. He actually dared to kill someone in front of everyone. Island Owner Wu, please uphold justice for our medicine sect today. Wu Miao looked stern and righteous. She reached out her hand to stop Zheng Dongsheng and said sternly, Don't worry, Alchemist Zheng. As the Vice Island Lord of Middle Island, I will never tolerate anyone abusing their power for personal gain and bullying others. I will definitely investigate this matter and give everyone an explanation." A mocking look appeared on the Will of Heaven's face as he said calmly, "Deputy Island Master Wu, you are indeed impartial and impartial. You have already come to a conclusion without any investigation, right?" Wu Miao first said that she wouldn't tolerate people abusing their power for personal gain and bullying others. Then she said that she would investigate the matter and get to the bottom of it. She was basically saying that the heavens were in the wrong. Anyone with a discerning eye could understand. However, almost no one dared to say it out loud like the Will of Heaven. However, everyone knew that the Will of Heaven and Wu Miao didn't get along. Therefore, it was normal for them to be at loggerheads. "Tianqing, even if you're also one of the Vice Island Masters, as the Executive Vice Island Master, I still have the authority to discipline you. If you want to say that I'm impartial, there's no problem. Let's go back and investigate this matter first," Wu Miao said coldly to the Will of Heaven, regardless of whether the Will of Heaven had done anything wrong. As long as Wu Miao brought him back, he would find a way to find a loophole. Wu Miao didn't need to give any orders. The 8 bodyguards who had followed her spread out and surrounded the Will of Heaven. In terms of strength, the 8 bodyguards combined were no match for the Will of Heaven. However, they represented the Island Master's Pavilion. If the Will of Heaven dared to resist or even injure any of them, Wu Miao would have nothing to say. However, the Will of Heaven didn't care about Wu Miao at all. Instead, he laughed loudly and said, "Wu Miao, you are just an executive deputy island master. Do you think you are so great just because you keep talking about it? How dare you send people to arrest a deputy island master without any evidence? How dare you?" Wu Miao snorted nonchalantly. "No evidence. Aren't the corpses on the ground and the witnesses evidence? Pale Master Zheng is a direct witness. The Will of Heaven, I advise you to behave yourself. If you resist, even Okuda won't be able to protect you. Why should I protect Deputy Island Master Heaven?" A displeased voice came from Tiandan Pavilion, and Wu Miao's expression instantly changed. This voice belonged to Okuda, whom Wu Miao had mentioned earlier. Why hadn't anyone told her that Okuda had come to Tiandan Pavilion? While Wu Miao's expression changed, Okuda slowly walked out and looked at Wu Miao coldly. Chapter 5791. To be honest, they hadn't received any news that Okuda had come to Tiandan Pavilion. Okuda had rushed over as soon as he heard about Lin Yi's return. He didn't want to cause trouble, so he had come alone without letting anyone know. The Will of Heaven had only met Okuda when he entered the Tiandan Pavilion's main hall. "Deputy Island Lord Wu, is this how you handle disputes? What a good tactic. In this seat's opinion, the Island Master of Middle Island should be you. When it comes to a Vice Island Master, you actually dare to act so carelessly. This is a boldness that my Okuda province doesn't have. Not bad at all," Okuda said calmly. His tone didn't sound angry, but even a fool could tell that he was rather displeased with Wu Miao. Okuda had always wanted to be on Lin Yi's good side, but something like this happened right after Lin Yi's return. Normal people would think that if he was like this right after coming back, what would it be like before he came back? Although the Okuda state still had the title of acting island master on his head, this kind of thing had caused him to lose a lot of face, so he was naturally quite unhappy. If Lin Yi felt that Okuda hadn't taken good care of Tiandan Pavilion after his primordial spirit projection, wouldn't all his efforts go to waste? Wu Miao broke out in a cold sweat. Not only was Okuda's cultivation level and status higher than hers, but he also had the Okuda family backing him up. Wu Miao couldn't afford to offend them. The consequences of offending Okuda would be 1,000 times worse than offending the lone Will of Heaven. Island Lord, Deputy Heaven Island Lord, has openly killed people here, which is a violation of the rules. This subordinate only wants to bring Deputy Heaven Island Lord back to verify the situation, lest the rumors spread on the island be detrimental to him, said Wu Miao as she bowed to Okuda. She was extremely respectful and humble. Even though Wu Miao, Zheng Dongsheng, Nantian Aurora, and the others were secretly plotting to get rid of the will of heaven and overthrow Okuda as the acting island lord, he didn't dare reveal any of it. Otherwise, the Okuda family's revenge would be too much for him to handle. Okuda, Zhou said with an expressionless face. This king also witnessed the whole thing. Vice Island Lord Tian did nothing wrong. Instead, it was Zheng Dongxing, a dignified 7th-grade alchemist who dared to speak nonsense in front of someone else's shop, disturbing the public security. Vice Island Lord Wu, shouldn't you invite Alchemist Jing back for a chat? Zhang Dongxing's face instantly turned as red as a pig's liver. His body couldn't help but tremble. As a dignified 7th-grade alchemist, wherever he went, he would be the center of attention. But now he was humiliated by Okuda. It was really intolerable. But even if he couldn't bear it, he still had to endure it. Zhang Dongxing did not dare to offend someone like Okuda, who had such a powerful background. If he was still the second-seat alchemist in the East Continent's yellow-rank Morning Star Cultivator Academy, he would not have to fear Okuda too much. It was a pity that he had been chased out. Wu Miao sighed in her heart. Okuda clearly wanted to support Tiandan Pavilion and the will of heaven, so Medicine Sect had no one to blame for coming to their doorstep. If he still couldn't understand, then he really didn't deserve to be the executive deputy island master. This subordinate understands. Don't worry, Island Lord. Alchemist Zheng will cooperate with this subordinate to resolve this matter. Once there is a result, this subordinate will personally report to Island Lord. Wu Miao became even more respectful. If they wanted to deal with Okuda, they couldn't arouse any suspicions from him. They were subservient now, so that they could kill him in one strike in the future. Wu Miao gritted her teeth and comforted herself. Then, she gestured for her subordinates to take Zheng Dongsheng away. Both of them were smart people. With Okuda and the will of heaven supporting Tiandan Pavilion, they definitely wouldn't be able to get anything out of this. They could only go back and discuss countermeasures. The will of heaven wanted Medicine Sect to compensate them, but unfortunately Okuda was here, so they couldn't bring themselves to do that. They could only drop the matter. In any case, they had killed a dog from Medicine Sect, so it wasn't a loss. After Wu Miao and Zheng Dongsheng left, they went to another property of Medicine Sect. They sent someone to call Southern Polar Light over for a discussion while they talked about Tiandan Pavilion. Island Lord Wu, why did Okuda and the will of heaven appear at Tiandan Pavilion at the same time? Do you think there's something wrong with Lin Yi? Zheng Dongxing frowned and guessed uneasily. He really did sound like the Emperor of Truth. Wu Miao shook her head and said, it's hard to say. Lin Yi has been in primordial spirit projection for almost 2 years now, right? He hasn't woken up for so long, so I'm guessing he's not coming back. Actually, Okuda only supports Tiandan Pavilion because of Lin Yi. If Lin Yi wasn't around, I don't think he would care about Tiandan Pavilion's survival. I heard that Lin Yi fainted last time, so I don't think he's going to make it. Do you think Okuda has taken a fancy to those 2 women? Zheng Dongxing's eyes suddenly lit up as he chuckled. The information he'd gathered was obviously about the futures exchange, and he hadn't heard anything about Han Jingjing saving Lin Yi. Zheng Dongsheng, on the other hand, was quite interested in this sort of boring gossip. Wu Miao snorted but didn't agree with Zheng Dongsheng. Instead, she said coldly, Okuda isn't a shallow person. Although the 2 women at Tiandan Pavilion are stunning, he wouldn't covet his friends' women. I'm pretty sure about this. Zheng Dongsheng glanced at Wu Miao strangely. He was just making a random guess. Why did she look so unhappy? Alchemist Zheng, if we want to deal with Okuda, we must accurately grasp and analyze his personality and behavior patterns. We must not put our subjective assumptions on Okuda. Otherwise, we will be the ones to suffer in the end. Wu Miao reminded them solemnly. She did not want to see the plan they had been working on for so long to be ruined by these idiotic teammates. Zheng Dongsheng laughed dryly and said, You're right, Island Lord Wu. but we can also make reasonable assumptions, right? Since it's uncertain, we might be able to come up with a better idea if we make assumptions. Wu Miao snorted again, but couldn't be bothered to say anything else. She picked up the teacup and slowly sipped on it. The two of them fell silent. Chapter 5792. Island Lord Wu. Master Zheng, I heard you got into a conflict with Okuda and the will of heaven. Nantian Aurora hurried over and cupped his fists in greeting before he immediately asked about it. You're quite well informed, Wu Miao replied indifferently since she wasn't in a good mood. Nantian Aurora was a little baffled. However, he could tell that Wu Miao was unhappy, so he could only turn to ask Zheng Dongsheng. Master Zheng, what exactly happened? Zheng Dongsheng snorted twice and briefly explained what had happened just now. Of course, he skipped over the parts where he embarrassed himself. Nantian Aurora rubbed his chin and pondered for a long time before he said, Island Lord Wu, Master Zheng, I think there's something strange about this. Okuda and the will of heaven suddenly appeared at Tiandan Pavilion. Something must have happened. I reckon the only person who could make them appear at the same time as Lin Yi. Do you think that Lin Yi has woken up? But he has been projecting his primordial spirit for 2 years. You know this better than anyone else. Have you ever heard of someone who can project their primordial spirit for 2 years and return? Wu Miao narrowed her eyes as she looked at Nantian Aurora. She didn't seem concerned about Lin Yi waking up. Zheng Dongsheng nodded in agreement. However, he immediately said, speaking of which, Lin Yi is the only person who could make both of them appear at Tiandan Pavilion at the same time. If Lin Yi didn't return, do you think Lin Yi would have died? Nantian Aurora and Wu Miao were stunned, and their jaws dropped involuntarily. That's right. Why couldn't Lin Yi have died? He had been projecting his primordial spirit for 2 years, and there was news that he had fainted. It was normal for him to have died. No, it should be said that this was more reasonable. However, if Lin Yi died, would Okuda still need to go to Tiandan Pavilion to support them? When Nantian Aurora thought of this, he immediately brought it up. After all, Okuda State was taking care of Heavenly Pill Pavilion out of respect for Lin Yi. If this fellow was finished, would he still stand up for Heavenly Pill Pavilion? Wu Miao immediately shook her head and said, no. If Lin Yi died, Okuda would definitely do something like this. This is to show how magnanimous he is. He definitely wouldn't find it troublesome. Zheng Dongsheng clapped and said, that's right. That must be the case. Lin Yi died a good death for Lin Yi. That will of heaven killed Tong Yang Soa to intimidate medicine sect. I'm sure that if he had the chance, he would have killed me as well. That Tong Tian Tian wouldn't have threatened Tiandan Tong. Can of Tong. Tian Dongling of. Mountain Yuta. Tian 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 is Lin. Nantian Aurora's eyes lit up and he laughed heartily. In that case, this might be true. Island Lord Wu, as long as Lin Yi is really dead, Will of Heaven's position won't be so stable. As long as we can pull Will of Heaven down, I, Nantian Aurora, will definitely support Island Lord Wu. Wu Miao's mood improved when she heard Nantian Aurora's straightforward promise. However, she wouldn't take action based on such a guess. We still need to investigate this matter. Whether Lin Yi is dead or not is the key. As long as he's alive, he can keep Tiandan Pavilion as stable as Mount Tai. If he's really dead, then they will immediately become a pile of loose sand. Wu Miao said calmly. She had already started to think about how to verify this matter. Nantian Aurora took the opportunity to suggest, I heard that the Central Chamber of Commerce can communicate with the secular world. Perhaps we can find out some information about Lin Yi in the secular world from the Central Chamber of Commerce. That way, we can confirm whether he's really dead or not. Of course, Wu Miao was familiar with the Central Chamber of Commerce. She immediately nodded and said, All right, I'll leave this matter to you. You must find out the details. Nantian Aurora agreed, respectfully. However, he despised them inwardly. Do you think it doesn't cost spirit jades to go to the Central Chamber of Commerce to find out information? You actually sent me away with just a few words? Just as Nantian Aurora suggested going to the Central Chamber of Commerce to find out information about Lin. He was also thinking about making a trip to the Central Chamber of Commerce. He didn't know what exactly happened to Han Jingjing, but no matter what, he had to first ask the secular world and see if Han Jingjing was still there. Of course, he couldn't go immediately. After all, Okuda Prefecture and the will of heaven were still here. He had to accompany them for a meal, tea, and chat first. The next morning, He first went to check on Han Jingjing. She was still sitting cross-legged and hadn't changed at all. For now, it was already good news that there were no changes, so he felt more at ease. Without bringing Tian Chan and the others with him, He went to the Central Chamber of Commerce alone. Actually, it wasn't that far from the Tiandan Pavilion, but the scale of the Central Chamber of Commerce was far greater than that of the Tiandan Pavilion. Although it wasn't that far, someone reported to Wu Miao and the others that He swaggered over to the Central Chamber of Commerce, leaving them speechless. Wasn't he supposed to be unconscious? Wasn't he supposed to be dead? Why did he come out again? Wu Miao and the others finally realized that Okuda Prefecture and the will of heaven had appeared at the Tiandan Pavilion at the same time because of Yi. He had really come back after 2 years of his primordial spirit projection. He didn't know how big of a surprise he had given them. He saw a familiar face as soon as he stepped through the doors of the Central Chamber of Commerce. "Si Haishao, why did you come to Middle Island?" asked Yi curiously. The Central Chamber of Commerce was shielded from divine senses, so He couldn't use his divine sense to see what was going on inside. He immediately missed Hong Zhong when he saw Si Haishao, who was supposed to be on the North Island. Si Haishao was surprised to see Yi. He said proudly, "Oh, it's Yi. I'm the head manager here. If you need any help, just let me know. But you'll need spirit jades. Seems like you're doing pretty well. You're even a head manager here. Work hard and don't be so lecherous in the future." Yi said casually, but Si Haishiao's face darkened. However, he quickly composed himself. It was in his nature to be lecherous and he couldn't change it. As for Yi, Si Haishiao would definitely stab him in the back if he had the chance. Si Haishao had actually been transferred to the Central Chamber of Commerce. Back when he was on the North Island, he had barely done anything to harm Yi. Moreover, he didn't have any achievements in gathering intelligence, so it would be strange if he hadn't been sent away. Chapter 5793. Yi didn't care. He smiled faintly and said, "Si Haishao, are you the person in charge here?" "Don't you understand? I'm the shopkeeper here, which means I'm the person in charge. If you have something to say, just say it. Don't dawdle all day." Si Haishao once again emphasized the words head manager in order to make himself appear more powerful. In fact, when it came to power, Si Haishao was far less powerful than when he was in the North Island. So he didn't even know that the Center and He had reached an agreement. "Well, I have a letter to send to the secular world." He didn't want to talk nonsense with this guy. He directly took out a letter and handed it to Si Haishao. Si Haishao snorted, raised his head, and said disdainfully, "This business has been stopped. You can go somewhere else. I won't see you out." He frowned slightly. The wormhole tunnel of the center had been shared with him. Why was it so troublesome to send a letter? If Han Jingjing came back, this kind of thing didn't need to be done through the center. Don't pretend to be the boss if you can't make the decision. Hurry up and find someone who can take charge here. Yi said impatiently. If he wasn't worried about Han Jingjing, he would have slapped him. Si Haishiao's annoying face made him angry. "Don't you understand human language? I'm the shopkeeper here. This business has been stopped. Hurry up and leave. Don't make trouble here." Yi was impatient. Si Haishao was impatient. He continued to drive Yi away. Yi didn't want to talk nonsense. He directly slapped Si Haishao in the face and sent him flying. Since he wanted to be slapped so badly, It seemed inappropriate not to be satisfied. It was said that one should look at the master before beating a dog. Since the master didn't come out, he would beat the dog first. He thought it would come out soon. "How dare you hit me? How dare you hit me in the Chamber of Commerce of the center? Lin Yi, you're dead." Si Haixiao spat out a few teeth and roared hysterically at Lin Yi. Even without Si Haixiao's order, a guard rushed out and fiercely pounced on Lin Yi, swinging the machete in his hand. Mid-stage profound ascension? The Central Chamber of Commerce is indeed rich. They can even use such an expert as a guard. Lin Yi clicked his tongue in wonder. However, his eyes were filled with disdain. He was only at the middle stage of profound ascension, yet he dared to be so arrogant in front of Lin Yi, he would not even know how he died. With another simple slap, this profound ascension middle stage guard flew out at a speed faster than when he came. Before he landed, he spat out a few teeth, which was no different from Si Haixiao's situation. Si Haixiao was dumbfounded. He couldn't help but swallow the words he was about to say. He knew that Lin Yi was strong, but when did Lin Yi become so strong? An expert at the middle stage of profound ascension was enough to be the Vice Island Master of Middle Island. In the end, Lin Yi didn't even look at him. With a casual slap, he sent him flying like a fly. How could they still have fun like this? Fortunately, it was still early. There were no outsiders in the Central Chamber of Commerce other than Lin Yi. Otherwise, this would really be a big loss of face. Si Haixiao originally wanted to use the ban of Middle Island to talk about it, but in the end he tactfully didn't say anything. Si Haixiao, are you still in charge here? Lin Yi waved his hand and looked at Si Haixiao with a mocking expression. Si Haixiao hurriedly shook his head and said, No, I'm just a shopkeeper. I can't make the decision. Please wait, I'll find someone in charge right away. After saying this, Si Haixiao didn't dare to be negligent anymore. He quickly got up and ran to inform the people above him. Soon he ran back and said, I'm asking you to go see him. It's on the 4th floor. This way, please. Half of Si Haixiao's face was swollen, but he didn't dare to treat it first. He led Lin Yi to the corridor with half fear and half respect. Lin Yi wasn't afraid of any ambush set up by the Central Chamber of Commerce. Middle Island was almost the same as his territory. There was no need to doubt its safety. Moreover, with his current strength, cultivators at the mountain opening stage might not be his opponent. There was really nothing to worry about. After leading Lin Yi to a room on the 4th floor, Si Haixiao retreated. Lin Yi scanned the room with his divine sense and discovered that every room had a divine sense shielding effect. However, it wasn't very strong. As long as he wanted to, he could easily break it. However, Lin Yi wasn't here to cause trouble, so he didn't intend to force his way in. He directly pushed open the door and walked in. Kong Ming Ming. What surprised Lin Yi was that the person inside was actually an acquaintance. This kid actually became Si Haixiao's direct superior. It seemed like his bootlicking skills were improving, so he climbed up quickly. He seemed to be doing quite well. Kong Ming Ming smiled proudly and said, Lin Yi, you didn't expect to see me here, right? I heard that you're very awesome. You came here early in the morning to beat people up. What about it? Do you think the Central Chamber can't deal with you? Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, I'm quite surprised. You're actually still alive? You even became the person in charge of the Central Chamber? Forget it. These are not important. I want to send a letter to the secular world. What do you say? What can I say? For the sake of our acquaintance, if you beg me, I'll send it to you. Kong Xiaoming laughed heartily. He crossed his legs and shook them quickly. He looked like a villain who was intoxicated with success. Is it because I haven't beaten you for a long time, so your skin is a little itchy? Lin erased his eyebrows slightly and said faintly, It may not be interesting to beat others, but he was very interested in beating up Kong Ming Ming. Kong Ming Ming snorted and said, Lin Yi, who are you trying to scare? Isn't it just a profound ascension late stage? Is it that great? In the small Jianghu and the secular world, You are powerful. But in the heavenly stage island, what is this strength? It's better for you to know your place. You mean you've already surpassed me? Then let's try 2 moves. Lin Yi stretched out his hand and hooked his finger at Kong Mingming. Kong Mingming was suddenly speechless. How could his strength compare with Lin Yi? He was really looking for a beating. After a pause, Kong Mingming straightened his neck and said, "Why do you care if I have surpassed you or not? Let me tell you, my men are stronger than you. What do you have to be proud of?" Afraid that Lin Yi would continue to pester this issue, Kong Mingming simply changed the topic and said, "Okay, don't talk about those useless things. I know about your things in the small Jianghu and the secular world. Or tell me what you are doing here." "Kong Mingming, are you scared? I said just now, send me a letter and die in the secular world." Lin Yi snorted and did not continue to find trouble with him. Chapter 5794. Genius 1. Second, remember love? Go. Say net. Provide you with wonderful novels to read. Thinking of Zhong Pingliang, Lin Yi said casually, "Even an idiot like you can get the position." "Why didn't Zhong Pingliang, who is as stupid as you, see it? Did he get the position too? Or is he dead?" Kong Mingming snorted and said, "Liang Bro is a big shot. How can a small character like you meet him whenever he wants? It doesn't matter if I tell you. Liang Bro is now the special envoy of Zhongdao, real lord. The whole Zhongdao is under Liang Bro's control. Of course, I'm not bad either. I'm the assistant of Zhongdao's special envoy, understand? I'm the second person under Liang Bro, helping Liang Bro to manage Zhongdao's center." Lin Yi was slightly happy. He didn't expect Zhong Pingliang to be doing so well. He had already become one of the higher-ups of the center. He didn't know if this little brother had other ideas. It would be great if he could meet him. "Okay, stop talking nonsense. Can you, the second brother, make the decision about sending the letter? Give me a direct answer." Lin Yi wanted to see Zhong Pingliang, but it was a bit abrupt if he took the initiative. He could only solve the problem of sending the letter first. Anyway, Zhong Pingliang was in Zhongdao. If he knew that he was back, he would find a way to meet him. Kong Xiaoming paused for a moment and snorted, "Of course I can make the decision for such a small matter, but you're different. You're someone that even Liang Bro doesn't like. I'll have to ask Liang Bro first. Just wait." Kong Mingming finished and saw that Lin Yi didn't move. He rolled his eyes and said, "I told you to go back and wait, not wait here." Lin Yi frowned slightly. This Kong Mingming really forgot the pain. Did he really think that he wouldn't dare to teach him a lesson here? "Leave the letter here. I'll inform you after I've consulted with Brother Liang." Kong Mingming also saw Lin Yi's frown. He really didn't dare to offend Lin Yi too much, so he immediately calmed down and said. Lin Yi snorted coldly and placed the letter on the tea table. "There's a mark of my divine sense on it. If it's damaged before it's sent to the secular world, you can wash your neck clean and wait for death." Kong Mingming felt a chill run down his spine. He really didn't think that Lin Yi was trying to scare him. His original intention of taking a peek to satisfy his curiosity immediately disappeared. "Who cares? Go quickly. I don't want to see you any more." Kong Mingming angrily asked him to leave. Sure enough, seeing Lin Yi alone was a bit stressful. Lin Yi smiled faintly and ignored Kong Mingming. He turned around and walked out of the room. Perhaps Zhong Pingliang was also in this building, but Lin Yi wouldn't take the initiative to find Zhong Pingliang, so he could only go back to Tiandan Pavilion first. Walking out of the Central Chamber of Commerce, Lin Yi suddenly felt that he should go back to the North Island as soon as possible. Zhong Pingliang and Kong Mingming both came to the Middle Island. He didn't know if there were any changes in the North Island. Shanghai Laner came from the North Island, but this young lady wouldn't care at all what was different about the North Island. Where there was a center, the power structure changed very quickly. For example, if there was no Lin Yi, the ancient small Jianghu might have been completely controlled by the center. There were a lot of masters on Sky Class Island, and the center wouldn't be able to control too many big sects in a short amount of time. But the power structure was definitely changing, and Lin Yi had to get to the bottom of what had happened in the past 2 years. The best target was, of course, Zhong Pingliang, who'd gotten into the center and held a high position. He only hoped that Zhong Pingliang could work hard and not completely fall for the center after getting benefits from the center. I wonder how the King of Junk is doing now. The things in the forging pool should be almost done, right? Lin Yi sighed softly, thinking about the King of Junk. It was all because of Han Jingjing. With the automatic forging mechanism, the King of Junk might be able to successfully end things. But where did Han Jingjing's primordial spirit go? After returning to the Heavenly Dan Pavilion, Lin Yi went to check on Han Jingjing again. She was still the same, and there were no signs of her suddenly waking up. This made him feel very helpless. After chatting with Tian Chan and Sydney for a while, Lin Yi started making some elixirs for them to sell. Tiandan Pavilion had been suppressed by the medicine sect for too long. It just so happened that Tong Yangsua was killed when the medicine sect came looking for trouble yesterday, so it was the best time for Tiandan Pavilion to strike back. When the sky turned dark, someone from the Central Chamber of Commerce came to find Lin Yi, saying that they wanted to discuss sending a letter to the common world. Lin Yi guessed that it was Zhong Pingliang, so he followed the person to the Central Chamber of Commerce without saying anything. Kong Mingming laughed when he saw Lin Yi. Lin Yi, you really do come and go at my beck and call. Not bad, not bad. Seeing that you're so obedient, I'll put in a good word for you in front of Liang Bro and get him to agree to send a letter to the common world. Lin Yi didn't even look at him, ignoring Kong Mingming completely. When he walked past him, he said faintly, "Idiot." The smile on Kong Mingming's face froze as he pointed at Lin Yi. Say that again. Do you believe that I won't kill you? Lin Yi, who was already on the stairs, didn't turn his head, but he still fulfilled Kong Mingming's request and raised his voice, "Idiot." The person who led the way had already told Lin Yi that it was Zhong Pingliang, the special envoy from the Central Chamber of Commerce, who wanted to see Lin Yi. The location was at the top floor of the Central Chamber of Commerce, so Lin Yi didn't want to talk to Kong Mingming at all. He would just go up and find Zhong Pingliang himself. The veins on Kong Ming's forehead were bulging. He felt that he was really an idiot. After being scolded once, he still wanted to be scolded again. He wanted to hit Lin Yi, but he knew that his strength was far from Lin Yi's. If he hit Lin Yi, he would be asking for a beating. Stop. This is the Central Chamber of Commerce. It's not a place where you can just walk around. Kong Mingming rushed up the stairs sullenly, blocking Lin Yi's way. He couldn't win in a fight, nor could he win in an argument. Kong Mingming could only stop Lin Yi to regain some sense of balance. Lin Yi purposely frowned. Didn't you send someone to tell me that Zhong Pingliang wants to see me? Just tell me if you're going to send me a letter or not. Don't play these annoying tricks all day. Kong Mingming was speechless. This time, it was Zhong Pingliang who wanted to see Lin Yi. He probably wanted to show off to Lin Yi after he got the position. So Kong Mingming came first to knock down Lin Yi's arrogance. Unfortunately, the one who was knocked down was Kong Mingming himself. Chapter 5795. Genius 1. Second, remember if you want to go. When they reached Pinliang's room, Kong Mingming glared at Lin Yi, motioning for him to stay put. He knocked on the door respectfully. Liang Bro, Lin Yi is here. Come in, Pin Liang said faintly from inside, and then went silent. Kong Mingming was about to turn around and call for Lin Yi, but the latter pushed him to the side and pushed the door open. The decorations and furnishings in this room were almost the same as those CEOs' offices on Earth. There was a sofa, a desk, a bar counter, a wine cabinet, a computer, and so on. As expected, with a wormhole, anything could be obtained. Pin Liang sat at his desk with a serious face, clicking his mouse from time to time as if he was working on something important. He didn't seem to notice the arrival of Lin Yi and Kong Mingming at all. Lin Yi scanned the room with his divine sense and couldn't help but laugh inwardly. The kid was really working on something important. The advanced minesweeper was already halfway done, and he couldn't afford to be distracted. Kong Mingming squeezed past Lin Yi angrily and jogged to Pin Liang's desk, bowing and smiling. Liang bro, I brought the kid Lin Yi here. Do you think we should arrange for a few more people to come over? This kid is very dangerous. Pin Liang didn't even want to talk to the idiot anymore. If he really wanted to send more people, he would have done it a long time ago. What kind of bullshit was he spouting now, especially in front of Lin Yi? I'm really worried about his IQ. But since Kong Mingming said it in front of him, Pin Liang gave up on the difficult task of Minesweeper. He raised his head and looked at Lin Yi, snorting coldly through his nose. That expression on his face made it clear that he was looking down on Lin Yi. Lin Yi's heart sank, wondering if Pin Liang had really gone back on his word. After all, Lin Yi didn't use any means to control him. If he really betrayed Lin Yi, it wouldn't be strange. But if that was the case, Lin Yi would still feel that it was a pity. After all, Pin Liang's performance had been good, and he had gained his trust. When Kong Mingming turned around, he had already straightened his body. He slightly raised his head and said in an arrogant manner, Lin Yi, hurry up and greet Brother Liang when you see him. Do you want to send a letter to the secular world? Let me tell you, this is all Brother Liang needs to say. Do you understand? If you do, come over. Pin Liang's hatred for Lin Yi was no less than Kong Mingming's hatred for him. So, Kong Mingming thought that if he stepped on Lin Yi in front of Pin Liang, he would definitely be appreciated. If it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid of Lin Yi's anger, he would have done it even more. Lin Yi was already thinking if he should teach Kong Mingming a lesson, in case the guy forgot his surname and kept jumping out to be arrogant. It was annoying. Pin Liang waved his hand casually. Xiaoming, you can leave first. I need to talk to him. You don't have to do anything else. Kong Mingming looked back at Pin Liang confused. He realized that it wasn't a joke, so he bowed. All right, Liang bro, I'll leave first. Call me if you need anything. As much as he wanted to stay and see what Pin Liang and Lin Yi were talking about, Kong Mingming didn't dare do so. He walked out obediently, and when he passed by Lin Yi, he threatened, Lin Yi, be careful. It's all our people outside. If you try anything funny, I guarantee you won't be able to leave the Chamber of Commerce. Lin Yi didn't waste any words. He reached out and grabbed Kong Mingming's neck, throwing him out of the room and closing the door, isolating them from the outside world. This room could even block out divine senses, so there was no need to worry about any sound leaking out. Since Pin Liang wanted to talk to Lin Yi alone, perhaps his worries were unnecessary. As expected, Pin Liang's face changed as soon as the door closed. That cold, aloof look from before was nowhere to be seen, replaced by a warm smile as he rushed over to Lin Yi. Boss, you're back. I was so worried. Pin Liang couldn't hold back the excitement in his heart any longer. He pounced on Lin Yi and gave him a hug before inviting him to sit on the sofa. Pin Liang, you're doing well. You're already the Nakajima envoy of the Chamber of Commerce. Lin Yi let out a sigh of relief. Pin Liang was still his follower, Pin Liang. He didn't betray him just because of his high position. It wasn't easy. It's just a coincidence. Actually, what I want the most is to be able to stay by your side, boss. This Nakajima envoy is so boring. Pin Liang said with a smile. He turned around and took out a bottle of red wine, pouring a glass for both Lin Yi and himself. Lin Yi felt as if he'd returned to the common world as he accepted the glass Pin Liang handed him. Everything here was just like the common world. There wasn't the slightest difference. Boss, I heard that you went back to the common world. So I spent a lot of effort and went through many channels to get transferred to Nakajima. I wanted to know your situation first thing, but it's been 2 years and you still haven't come back. To be honest, I feel like I've lost my backbone. Let's not talk about how anxious I was. Luckily, you're back safe and sound. It's good that you're fine. It's good that you're fine. Pin Liang clinked his glass with Lin Yi's, full of emotions. So, Pin Liang came to Nakajima as the envoy because he was worried about him. Lin Yi didn't expect this guy to be so loyal to him. After taking a sip of wine, he smiled faintly. You're considerate. I heard from Kong Mingming that you, as the Nakajima envoy, are the person in charge here, right? Pinliang nodded and smiled. That's right. I'd basically have the final say in the central affairs of Nakajima. But there's a mysterious man in black above me. I don't know who he is, but he seems to be in charge of the entire central personnel of Sky-class Island. As for the North Island, the person in charge is Su Lingchong. This guy has some tricks up his sleeve. I transferred him to Nakajima, and he's the best shield, so no one suspected anything. Lin Yi understood what Pinliang meant. One mountain couldn't accommodate two tigers. Since Su Lingchong was in charge of the North Island, Pinliang naturally had to find another place to develop. Nakajima probably didn't consider him at first, but with Su Lingchong's excuse and his own operation, he was able to come to Nakajima. Chapter 5796. Genius 1. Second, remember if you want to go? Sure, Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. By the way, how many higher-ups are there on the Heavenly Island? Lin, he wanted to have a good understanding of the central power structure here so that he could deal with them in the future, so he specifically asked. Pinliang smiled bitterly. Boss, I really don't know about that. It's always been that mysterious man in black contacting us. I said it's Nakajima's envoy, but he's still far from being able to enter the core circle. Lin, he nodded. This situation was normal. If Pinliang was able to get into the core circle in such a short time, then it meant that he was suited to work in the center. It was better to move to the center as soon as possible. Then you should know what the center has been up to recently, right? Lin, he had to settle for the next best thing. This problem should be much simpler. Pinliang was Nakajima's envoy, and even if he couldn't participate directly in the core of the plan, he had to be able to cooperate. From those clues, it was still very easy to find some clues to deduce what the center wanted to do. Pinliang thought about it and said, Speaking of movements, I heard that the center is planning something called South Island. I'm not sure about the specifics. It's being handled by the mysterious man in black and Master Pao. I haven't had the chance to find out much useful information. Master Pao? Who are you? Lin Yi asked curiously. Perhaps this person was a key figure in the center. It would be great if he could understand more about him. Love, go small, say, Netku Pinliang shrugged. I'm not too sure myself. I've only seen this Master Pao once. He was wearing a hooded cloak, and his face was covered with a black cloth. I was wondering if he was Pao, but he didn't say anything, so I didn't dare think too much about it. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. Perhaps that was a possibility, but he wasn't in a rush. He'd look into it in the future. If Master Pao really was Zhang Naipeo, Pinliang might be able to turn things around. Speaking of which, Pinliang's authority as Nakajima's envoy was too low. He didn't have much useful information, but he hadn't been in the center for long. It was already hard enough for him to climb up the ranks. He shouldn't have too many requirements. Boss, there's no problem with the letter you wanted to send. I've specifically asked the higher-ups, and they said that you and the center have reached a 1-year non-aggression agreement. They've also given you the right to use the wormhole tunnel and research. We'll mind our own business and develop our own business. If there's anything you need to teleport, you can do it anytime. Pinliang didn't say much about Master Pao, instead returning to Lin Yi's letter. Lin Yi nodded casually. The signing of the agreement with the center should have been reported to Sky-class Island long ago, but Pinliang didn't know about it until now. It was obvious that he was only a member of the outer circle and only had a high position on the surface. Sky Island are heart first. Lin's Pinliang's heart Lin's letter was the center Lin's long heart Pinliang agreement. If the South Island plan is carried out and you want to destroy it, isn't it tantamount to tearing up the armistice agreement? Linny paused and looked at Pinliang. You're saying that my agreement with the center includes Sky-class Island, isn't it? Pinliang didn't know what was going on. That should be the case. But why didn't Lin Yi think so? Lin Yi slapped his forehead and said, I understand now. This time, I was really cheated by that woman Lan Xiaoru. Her agreement didn't specify whether it was the mortal world or the heaven stage island. It only said that it was between the center and me. So it naturally included all places. Even if she wants me to return to heaven stage island, she can't just go and get in the way, right? Han Jingjing had already carefully found a hidden loophole in the agreement. She didn't expect there to be another one here, but it wasn't her fault. Maybe Han Jingjing didn't think that there was a problem with a 1-year armistice with the center. This was all because of the information asymmetry. If Han Jingjing knew that the center had a plan for the South Island, she would have suggested that the 1-year armistice was only for the mortal world. Pin Liang heard this and immediately said to Lin Yi, Boss, the center wants you not to interfere with their plan. It's obvious that this is very important to them. It's fine if you don't want that agreement, but you can't let the center carry out their plan smoothly. Lin Yi nodded. You're right, but since this 1-year period has been set, I have to abide by it. Although both of us don't really care about this agreement, I won't be the first to go back on my word. Then what should we do? Pin Liang really didn't think that breaking the agreement was a problem, but if Lin Yi kept his promise, Pin Liang would only respect Lin Yi even more. A person like this was worthy of his loyalty. People like Kong Mingming, who treated promises like farts, would never be trusted. Lin Yi didn't answer Pin Liang immediately. Instead, he closed his eyes and fell into deep thought. After a while, he smiled faintly. We won't break the agreement first, but if the center makes a move first, I won't have anything to worry about. Pin Liang's eyes lit up. He clapped his hands and laughed. As expected, boss. You're right. We'll just let the center break the agreement. Since they knew that the center had a plan for the South Island, Lin Yi just needed to set up a plan in the South Island first. In the end, the center would definitely have a conflict with him because of this. At that time, they could say that the center broke the agreement, and that was the truth. There was no doubt about it. The only thing to worry about was the South Island. If Lin Yi went there, it would be very difficult for him to escape. If he went back to set up a plan, who knew what would happen? The spirit beasts were not to be trifled with, especially that vermilion bird. Lin Yi knew that he was far from being a match for vermilion bird. If he was discovered, he would be easily killed. Before Lin Yi could speak, Pin Liang patted his chest and said, Don't worry, boss. I'll definitely speed up the investigation regarding the South Island plan. As long as we have a detailed location and target, it'll be much easier for us to prepare in advance. When that time comes, it won't be us causing trouble, but the center will cause trouble for us. Chapter 5797. If it weren't for Chun Dongqing's betrayal, Dafeng Bro would have been killed on the spot. Lin Yi didn't want this to happen to Zhong Pingliang again, so he would rather give up the plan to destroy the center than let Zhong Pingliang be caught for this reason. Although Lin Yi's words were simple, Zhong Pingliang could hear the meaning behind it. He was grateful in his heart and raised his glass. Boss, let's not talk too much. I wish us success in advance. With the crisp sound of glasses clinking, Lin Yi drank the red wine in the glass and put it down. Then I'll go back first. Let me know if there's any news. I'll remember. Boss, wait a moment. Let me put away the glass first. Zhong Pingliang also drank the wine, then took Lin Yi's glass to wash, wiped it dry, and put it back in place. He poured some red wine into his own glass and put it on the desk. If the people who just came in saw it, they would definitely think that Zhong Pingliang was drinking alone and had no intention of drinking with Lin. Lin Yi nodded secretly. Zhong Pingliang seemed to have matured a lot, paying attention to these details. Otherwise, if he was seen through, he wouldn't need to inquire about the Southern Island plan. Who knew when he would disappear from the face of the earth? After finishing these things, Zhong Pingliang smiled and said to Lin Yi, Boss, I'll have to trouble you again. Lin Yi smiled carelessly and waved his hand, signaling Zhong Pingliang to do as he wanted. Seeing him like this, Lin Yi was only happy and relieved. Why would he feel wronged? Zhong Pingliang turned back to the desk, picked up the wine glass, and sat on the office chair. He put both his legs on the desk, and the expression on his face became cold and arrogant again. Lin, he had to give him a thumbs up for this acting. Kong Mingming, come in for a moment, Pin Liang said coldly as he pressed a button on the side. This was probably a technological product from the common world. Otherwise, no one would be able to hear him yelling at the top of his lungs in the room. In just 2 or 3 seconds, Kong Mingming knocked on the door and came in. Obviously, he had been waiting outside the whole time. Brother Liang, you were looking for me? Kong Mingming walked in with a face full of smiles. He was very happy to see Pin Liang's expression and Lin is sitting on the sofa without a cup of tea in front of him. Pin Liang snorted, his face expressionless. The higher-ups said that we signed a 1-year truce with Lin Yi, and that will let him use the passage to the common world unconditionally. Send him out now. I don't want to see him anymore. Kong Mingming wasn't surprised by this news. He must have heard about it before. So he turned to Lin Yi with a straight face. Did you hear that? Leave now, don't be an eyesore here. Luckily you signed a truce with us. Or else you won't be walking out of this door today. This was a complete bluff. Kong Mingming knew that Lin Yi wouldn't do anything to him. So he had the courage to say this. Lin Yi laughed coldly. Zhong Pingliang, Kong Mingming, you two are just 2 small fry in the center. You don't even have the right to talk to me. I'm only here for Lan Sharu's sake today. If you trouble me like this again, believe it or not, I'll kill you too, and Lan Sharu won't say anything. Kong Mingming's body shook. It was possible. To the higher-ups in the center, he was just a replaceable chess piece. If he was killed by Lin Yi, no one would come to avenge him. Kong Mingming was a little dispirited at this thought. He could only harumph. Stop bullshitting. We don't welcome you here. Leave. Don't come here if you have nothing to do. With that, he didn't dare wait for Lin Yi to continue. He quickly opened the door and signaled Lin Yi to leave. Behind Kong Mingming, Lin Yi winked at Zhong Pingliang as a farewell greeting. He then smiled coldly. Zhong Pingliang, I'll send the letter properly. If anything happens, I'll come back for you. Zhong Pingliang didn't seem to care at all. He didn't even want to talk to Lin Yi. Kong Mingming, who was standing at the door, was impressed. He dared to give Lin Yi the cold shoulder. Liang Bro was indeed Liang Bro. No wonder he's the envoy and I, Kong Mingming, am just the envoy's assistant. It doesn't make sense. His goal was achieved. Lin Yi didn't want to waste any more time. He said a few words and left, ignoring Kong Mingming at the door. Kong Mingming didn't dare to continue provoking Lin Yi. He didn't have any masters protecting him. He wouldn't be stupid enough to go up and ask for a beating. When he returned to Tiandan Pavilion, Ho Guanqi from Dan Hall, Kai Zhongyang from 5 Elements Commerce, and Wei Xinjin from Snow Sword School were all there. They welcomed Lin Yi when they saw him. Brother Lin, you're finally back. Heroes come from the young. You've projected your soul for 2 years. I'm so worried. If I didn't receive the news just now, I wouldn't even know you're back. I'll punish myself with 3 drinks later. Kai Zhongyang laughed and was the first to speak. His face was full of joy. As the vice president of 5 Elements Commerce, he was naturally very tactful and experienced in dealing with people. However, Lin Yi could feel that what Kai Zhongyang said just now was sincere. Although Ho Guanqi was also Kai Zhongyang's senior brother, he didn't want to be the first. After Kai Zhongyang finished speaking, he walked forward and cupped his fists with a smile. I've said it before. Brother Lin is a good man. Heaven helps him. There will definitely be no problem. Sure enough, it's just as I expected, right? The last sentence was asked to Kai Zhongyang. Kai Zhongyang laughed and agreed immediately. Wei Xinjin was the last to come up. He said excitedly, Boss, you're finally back. These 3 people took care of Tiandan Pavilion when Lin Yi wasn't around. However, the one who contributed the most was naturally Wei Xinjin. It was just that he happened to go back to the sect to deal with something today, so he didn't know the news of Lin Yi's return immediately. When Lin Yi took him in, he put the heart-devouring voodoo in him. If he didn't come back, Wei Xinjin would be buried with Lin Yi. However, he was really worried about the heart-devouring voodoo in the beginning. Slowly, he really fell in love with Tiandan Pavilion. He also really wanted to follow Lin Yi. Seeing Lin Yi back, he was happy from the bottom of his heart. This time it was also thanks to Lin Yi giving the prescription to suppress the heart-devouring voodoo to Tianchan in advance. Otherwise, after 2 years, Wei Xinjin might not even have any bones left. Chapter 5798. With their cultivation at this level, they had no need for food at all. However, eating something with abundant spiritual qi could not only satisfy their appetite, but also improve their cultivation. Why not? They talked with Lin Yi while following him to the living room. Tian Chan and Sydney did not come to accompany them, but were busy making some food and sending it up. Brother Lin, I came late today because I was going to the northernmost island to participate in the auction. If you came back 1 or 2 days later, you might not see me in the central island. Kai Zhongyang said with a laugh, pointing out the reason why he could not come at the first time today. Ho Guanqi happened to be refining a furnace of medicinal pills. After finishing, he received the news and came immediately. Lin Yi waved his hand and did not care about these trivial things. Instead, he was very interested in the auction that Kai Zhongyang said. He had gone to the auction in the northernmost island with Hong Zhong, and he still had a deep memory of it. So when he heard the news, he was a little excited. Anyway, he wanted to go back to the northernmost island. Of course, the northernmost island was the closest to the northernmost island. It would not delay anything if he went back by the way. Brother Kai, when will the auction in the northernmost island start, and when are you going to leave? Lin Yi asked casually. He didn't necessarily have to go to this auction if the time didn't match up. Kai Zhongyang laughed and said, The auction will start in about half a month. Our preparation work has almost been completed. It is estimated that we will leave in these 2 days. Brother Lin, are you interested in going to see it together? Lin Yi pondered for a moment and did not immediately answer Kai Zhongyang's question. If Han Jingjing could wake up smoothly, he could rest assured to see what good things were in the auction in the northernmost island. However, Kai Zhongyang and the others were going to leave in these 2 days. It was a little rushed. He did not know if Han Jingjing could return in these 2 days. If he left Han Jingjing in a coma like this, Lin Yi really couldn't leave the middle island with peace of mind. Whether it was going back to the North Island or investigating the South Island plan of the Center of Destruction, he couldn't be compared with Han Jingjing. Seeing that Lin Yi did not speak, Hou Guanqi thought about it and said, Brother Lin, I have heard about Miss Han's situation. Unfortunately, my and Brother Kai's level of alchemy is too low, so we cannot help at all. But I think you should go to the auction in the northernmost island. Lin Yi was slightly stunned and said, Is there something in the northernmost island auction that can help Jingjing's current situation? Without waiting for Hou Guanqi to answer, Kai Zhongyang clapped his hands and said, Yes, if senior brother did not remind me, I really did not think of this. After saying that, he realized that it was too impolite to rush to speak. So Kai Zhongyang quickly apologized to Hou Guanqi. Senior brother, I am sorry. I was excited and interrupted you. Hou Guanqi waved his hand and said with a smile, We are brothers. There is no need to apologize. You know this better than me. It is more appropriate for you to say it. Lin Yi did not care who said it. As long as it could help Han Jingjing, it was fine. However, he could not urge them, so he could only look at the 2 brothers with anticipation. Kai Zhongyang was also not polite. After expressing his apology to Hou Guanqi, he immediately said, It is like this. In this northernmost island auction, there will be a few precious things participating in the auction. Among them, there is a treasure that is beneficial to Miss Han. Brother Kai, please explain in detail. Lin Yi was anxious, but Kai Zhongyang did not get to the point, so he could only ask for guidance. In this auction, there is a spirit gathering branch. This is a treasure that can condense the spirit. As long as you carry it with you, it can constantly nourish the spirit and gather the power of spiritual sense. Miss Han's current situation is that after the spirit projection, it cannot return to the body normally. If you can have the spirit gathering branch, it should be able to guide the direction of the return of the spirit. Even if you can't wake up for a while, you can slowly gather the power of the spirit. Kai Zhongyang said in detail. This spirit gathering branch was really useful for Han Jingjing. After hearing this, Lin Yi had decided to get this spirit gathering branch at all costs. Even if Han Jingjing could wake up before this spirit gathering branch was also quite useful. Seeing that Lin Yi was very interested, Kai Zhongyang continued, in addition to the spirit gathering branch, there is also the soul wood, but this is a treasure that nourishes the spirit. It is not helpful for Miss Han's situation, but if these two can be used together, the effect may have a bonus effect. Lin Yi's heart moved. The soul wood was not very useful for Han Jingjing, but it should be very useful for ghost things. Moreover, with this thing, the spirit projection in the future would also be of great help. Brother Kai, it seems that I have to go to the auction this time. I will have to trouble you to take me there. Lin Yi smiled and cupped his hands at Kai Zhongyang. Although he could go to the northernmost island himself, it would be more convenient to go with Kai Zhongyang. Whether it was the soul wood or the spirit gathering branch, these treasures would definitely attract a lot of people. Lin Yi was not sure if he would have enough money to buy them, so on the way there he would have to make more elixirs to sell. Kai Zhongyang laughed heartily and said, "Younger brother Lin is too polite. What trouble? To be able to travel with you is my honor. When the time comes, I will have to ask for your advice on elixir making." This wasn't just a polite thing to say. Although Kai Zhongyang was Zhang Liju's disciple, his elixir-making skills were far below even Zheng Dongxing's, not to mention Lin Yi. After all, Lin Yi's name as a master elixir maker was one of the best in East Continent. Ho, Guanxi laughed as well. If that's the case, I will have to go as well. Otherwise, wouldn't I miss such a good opportunity? Haha, of course, Shi Xiang will have to come along. It's a rare opportunity, wouldn't it be a waste to miss it? Kai Zhongyang's face was full of joy. The more people going, the better it would be. Wei Xinjin followed. Boss, can I go as well? Although I don't know much about elixir making, I can run errands and run errands. In the Snow Sword sect of Middle Island, Wei Xinjin was one of the more special ones. If he wanted to go with Lin Yi to the northernmost island, basically no one would object. Chapter 5799. Kai Zhongyang smiled and said, "Little Wei, it's good to go together. There should be something suitable for you at the far north island. Just remember to bring enough spirit jades." After deciding on who to go with them, Kai Zhongyang turned to Lin Yi and said, "Brother Lin, we're taking a huge ship to the far north island this time. The ship is scheduled to dock tomorrow night. If we're on time, we can leave the day after tomorrow. I'll inform you then." "Thank you, Brother Kai." Lin Yi smiled and thanked him before he raised his glass. "Let me propose a toast to everyone. Thank you for taking care of Tian Chan and Sydney for the past 2 years." The three of them hurriedly raised their wine glasses and exchanged a few polite words. Then they raised their heads and downed the wine in one gulp. While the atmosphere in the Tiandan Pavilion was harmonious, the atmosphere in the medicine sect was a little tense. Lin Yi's sudden return made Zheng Dongxing a little uneasy. He had been discussing Lin Yi with Wu Miao and Nantian Aurora before this guy popped out. If this continued, Zheng Dongxing had a premonition that he would be chased away by Lin Yi again. It had happened once in the East Continent. He didn't want it to happen again in the Central Island. Zheng Dongjue put down the teacup in his hand expressionlessly and said faintly, "Cousin, since that brat Lin Yi is back, the revival of the Heavenly Dan Pavilion shouldn't be a problem. Do you have any ideas?" Zheng Dongxing said impatiently, "What ideas can I have? Wait for Wu Miao and Nantian Aurora to discuss it. We have to come up with a plan. Dongjue, can't you arrange for some spies to go to Tiandan Pavilion?" Don't you know that we're at a disadvantage because we don't have accurate information? There are only a few people in Tiandan Pavilion. It's not easy to bribe them, let alone arrange for spies. Zhang Dongjue snorted and said with some dissatisfaction, "Cousin, isn't Tong Yang's death too worthless this time? Don't bring people to do something so meaningless next time." Meaningless things? Zhang Dongxing was inwardly annoyed, but Tong Yangsua was Zhang Dongjue's man. Since he was killed by the will of heaven when he went out with Zhang Dongjue, he couldn't say anything. It was only right for Zhang Dongjue to grumble a little. "Tong Woli, come in." After Zhang Dongjue finished speaking, he raised his voice and called in a tall and skinny man outside the door. This tall and skinny man had a gloomy face, but his eyes were extremely sharp. He did not say anything as he walked in, only cupped his fists and bowed to Zhang Dongjue and Zhang Dongsheng, then stood up straight and waited at the side. Zhang Dongjue pointed at the lanky man and said to Zhang Dongsheng, "Cousin, this is Tong Yangsue's younger brother, Tong Wulsui. The two of them have been with me for many years and can be said to be my left and right arms. This time, I will hand him over to you. You must protect him." "Of course." Zhang Dongxing smiled and nodded to Tong Woli. Without Tong Yangsui by his side, it was somewhat inconvenient to do things. Now that Tong Woli was here, it could be said that he had helped him a lot, so his attitude was considered gentle. As for Tong Yangsui dying because of him, Zhang Dongxing never thought about it. Of course, those who followed him had to be prepared to die at any time. Tong Woli cupped his fists and bowed again, then finally said, "Grandmaster Zhang, this subordinate will do his best to assist Grandmaster. Moreover, this subordinate will definitely take revenge for my brother." Zhang Dongxing nodded and promised, "That's natural. I am also quite sad that Tong Yangsui died. This revenge must be avenged. You can rest assured that the will of heaven will take care of him sooner or later. As long as you can do your job wholeheartedly, you will soon see the scene." Tong Woli gritted his teeth and said, "Thank you, Grandmaster Zhang. When the time comes, please let this subordinate deal with the will of heaven. If this subordinate doesn't cut him into pieces, this subordinate will not be able to dispel the hatred in his heart. Of course, that's not a problem. That ignorant the will of heaven deserved such an ending." Zhang Dongsheng agreed to Tong Yangsue's request. He did not need to take out any benefits, and this way, he could obtain Tong Woli's gratitude and loyalty. It was simply too worth it. Zhang Dongjue smiled and said, "Cousin, Tong Woli is meticulous and is a rare think tank. Therefore, I asked him to come over. Perhaps he can give some useful advice." "Oh, Woli, you are such a rare talent. Come, sit down and talk." Zhang Dongxing revealed a pleasantly surprised expression and warmly invited Tong Woli to sit down. He looked like a courteous scholar, but Tong Woli was well aware that there was some sincerity in it. After thanking him, Tong Woli also sat down. However, he only put his hands on half of the chair and straightened his back, not daring to show the slightest disrespect. "Tong Woli, tell me, is there any way to deal with Tiandan Pavilion?" Zhang Dongjue casually glanced at Tong Woli and said lightly. This was to let Tong Woli show off in front of Zhang Dongsheng. Tong Woli immediately cupped his fists and said, "This subordinate thinks that since Lin Yi has returned, then Tiandan Pavilion can't be touched for the time being. Not to mention his own strength and ability. Just Okuda Prefecture, Ho Guanqi Kaizhongyang, and that ignorant man, the will of heaven alone, have a terrifying support for Lin. Before he returned, this support would not be fully displayed, but now it is at the peak." Zhang Dongxing asked curiously, "Don't you want to seek revenge from the will of heaven? Tiandan Pavilion and the will of heaven are actually two existences. Don't you understand this?" Replying to Master Zhang, this subordinate certainly understands this, but revenge is revenge, and it also needs the right time. This subordinate will not be blinded by hatred and make some wrong judgments. Tong Woli showed some hatred on his face, but he immediately suppressed it. Jing Dongxing nodded with satisfaction and said, "Not bad. It is very good that you can think this way. Continue. Now that we can't touch Tianden Pavilion, what should we do?" "It's very simple. Take drastic measures." A trace of madness flashed in Tong Wuli's eyes, and even Zheng Dongxing and his brother did not notice it. This subordinate thinks that Tiandan Pavilion itself is not enough to be feared, and Lin, you will not always stay in Middle Island. He will only come occasionally, so as long as we get rid of the supporters of Tiandan Pavilion, it will be fine. Are you saying that we should get rid of the acting island master position of Okuda Prefecture? It is not that we have not thought of this method, but it is not very useful. Zheng Dongsheng was a little disappointed. If Tong Wuli only had this little knowledge, then he could not be called a wise man. Chapter 5800. Zhang Dongjue said faintly, "Tong Wulsuo, tell me your plan. Don't waste time." "Yes, Vice Head." Tong Wulsuo bowed slightly and continued, "We have to make a move on Okuda Prefecture, and the breakthrough point is his brother Okuda Ba. I've received news that Okuda Ba has already formed a small fleet of treasure ships. We can think of a way to deal with this. And if he gets into trouble, our acting island master won't just stand by and watch." Zheng Dongxing's eyes brightened. Why hadn't he, Wu Miao, and Nantian Aurora thought of this before? Okuda Ba was indeed quite a character, but the problem wasn't killing him. It wasn't that difficult. If Okuda Ba was still that ancient warship, it wouldn't be easy to deal with him. But since he had formed a small fleet of treasure ships, there would be a lot more opportunities. Tong Wulsuo stretched out a finger, indicating that what he had just said was the first point. Then he stretched out a second finger and said, "The matter of Okuda State can't be settled so quickly, so we have to take multiple measures at the same time. The second person to make a move is Ho Guanqi from the Dan Hall. With him being a hindrance here, it won't be easy for us to control the Dan Hall, and his support for the Heavenly Dan Hall is second only to the Okuda State." Zhang Dongjue's lips curled. Compared to destroying Tiandan Pavilion, he wanted to control the Elixir Hall more. Zhang Liju couldn't always appear at critical moments, and as long as he could completely control the Elixir Hall, he could slowly wear down Zhang Liju's influence. Tong Wulsuo's suggestion suited him very well. We can't deal with Ho Guanqi in the Middle Island. After all, the Elixir Hall has too much influence here, and it's almost impossible to succeed without a thorough plan. Same goes for Kai Zhongyang of Five Elements Commerce. Tong Wulsuo raised 3 fingers, indicating that these 3 were the most important. As for the will of heaven, Tong Wulsuo didn't mention it. He clearly thought that the will of heaven wasn't a concern, and it was unknown whether it was because of his desire for revenge or because he really thought so. Zhang Dongxing nodded repeatedly. Although Tong Wumiao didn't tell him the details of his plan, it seemed like it was going in the right direction. It was clearly much better than the plan he had discussed with Wu Miao and Southern Aurora. Originally, it would not be easy to deal with these people, but this is an excellent opportunity. Tong Wulsuo smiled coldly and retracted his outstretched finger, showing his great confidence. "What do you mean?" Zhang Dongxing was attracted by Tong Wuli's words and could not help but ask. "The Extreme North Island auction." Tong Wulsuo clenched his fists tightly, producing crackling sounds. At the same time, he retracted his sinister smile and spoke in an affirmative tone. Zhang Dongjue interrupted. "Our Pill Hall will also be participating in the Extreme North Islands auction this time, so I will think of a way to send Ho Guanqi to the Extreme North Island. 5 Elements Commerce's Kai Zhongyang shouldn't be absent. The 2 of them will definitely travel together. Tong Wulsuo, our most important goal now is to control the Pill Hall, so when you come up with a plan, you must prioritize this goal. Also, don't provoke Lin Yi for the time being. Put aside anything that might cause a conflict with Lin Yi first." At this moment, Zhang Dongjue still didn't know that Ho Guanqi had already decided to go to the Extreme North Island. Otherwise, he would definitely laugh out loud and say that the heavens were on his side. He didn't even need to think of a way to achieve his goal. This was a good start. I understand. Don't worry, Vice Hall Master. Tong Wulsuo bowed respectfully and agreed. Then he continued, Ho Guanqi and Kai Zhongyang are going to the extreme North Island together. This is the best time to make a move. According to the information I received, they will go on the Okuda Dam ship. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We must grasp it well. Zhang Dongxing couldn't help but be slightly moved. He didn't expect that the three important figures in Tong Wulsuo's plan would gather together at once. It was indeed a heaven-sent opportunity. After leaving the island, it would be much easier to deal with the three of them. Once something happens to the Okuda Dam, the Okuda Prefecture would definitely not sit idly by. Zhang Dongjue and the others would take the opportunity to make things difficult for him. It wouldn't be a problem to kick him out of his position as the acting island master. This Tong Wulsuo really seemed to be a bit of a strategist. Zhang Dongjue smiled with satisfaction. If we want to deal with them on the ship, we must have our people follow them. Tong Wulsuo, do you want to follow them? How many helpers do you need? Of course, it's easier for me to control the situation if I follow them. If there are any small changes, I can adjust it at any time. As for helpers, I don't need too many. Otherwise, it will easily arouse their vigilance. Just 2 or 3 experts will be enough. Tong Wulsuo replied respectfully. At the same time, he showed enough confidence. Zhang Dongsheng clapped and laughed. Good, that's great. As long as this matter is completed, Tong Wulsuo, any reward you want is not a problem, especially in terms of medicinal pills. As long as you can find the herbs, I can refine them for you for free. Thank you, Grandmaster Zhang. This subordinate will not hesitate, even if I have to sacrifice my life for you. Tong Wulsuo's face was full of gratitude, but he was very disdainful in his heart. It was good to refine pills for free, but to do such a big thing, he actually had to find the spiritual herbs to refine pills himself. It was really too stingy. Zhang Dongjue slapped his forehead and said, That's right, cousin. There is something I forgot to say. This time among the people from our pill hall going to the extreme North Island, there is an important person. I heard that Tianqing's nephew is young and promising. He is a rare Qilin of our Zheng family. Why don't we let him follow us this time? If there is a chance on the way, we can get our hands on that important person. Then, the day when the pill hall falls into our hands is really close. Oh, who is it that is so important? Zheng Dongsheng was slightly startled. His grandson, Zheng Tianqing, was only in his early 20s, but he was already in the early stage of nascent soul realm. He was indeed a good genius, especially Zheng Tianqing's cultivation. He did not rely on too many medicinal pills. It could be said that it was quite rare. This time he had just arrived at the middle island from the east continent. Zhang Dongjue had not even seen his face yet. How could he have his eyes on him? Zhang Dongjue smiled mysteriously and said in a low voice, Cousin, rest assured. Do you think I will harm Tianqing? If it wasn't for Tianqing, this disappointing person, I may not be willing to let Tianqing get involved. After that, without waiting for Zheng Dongxing to ask, he directly leaned over and beckoned him to come closer. Chapter 5801. After hearing this name, Zheng Dongxing's face was suddenly full of shock, which immediately turned into a huge surprise. He grabbed Zheng Dongjue's wrist and said, Is what you said true? Is she really going to follow us to the northern island? Zheng Dongjue chuckled and said, Naturally, it is true, and you only know her identity on the surface. The other hidden identity is absolutely not known. There is a hidden identity? What is it? Zheng Dongsheng was slightly startled. Just the identity on the surface is enough to match up with his grandson, Zheng Tianqing. What hidden identity is there? You don't need to know this for the time being. If the heavenly crystal is successful, I will definitely tell you in detail. But now is not the time, cousin. You just need to tell the heavenly crystal that he must go all out to do this. He will absolutely not suffer a loss. Zheng Dongjue waved his hand. He did not reveal the answer to Zhang Dongxing's question. Zhang Dongxing could only endure the unbearable itch in his heart. Since Zhang Dongjue did not say it now, then there must be a reason. Zhang Dongxing will not force the other party to say it. Anyway, the identity of that person on the surface is enough to match up with his grandson, Zhang Tianqing. The other hidden identity, for the time being, is really not important. Good. In that case, I will let the heavenly crystal go with us. Zhang Dongxing nodded, then turned to Tong Wulsuo and said, Wulsuo, I will ask you to take care of my grandson. Remember, the safety of him and that person is the most important. As for the rest of the plan, you can act according to the circumstances. It is better to let go than to invite trouble. Do you understand? This subordinate understands. Tong Wulsuo bowed his head and respectfully replied, but when he bowed his head, his eyes flashed a trace of disappointment. Zhang Dongxing was always overcautious. He always changed his mind. He really did not have any courage, this kind of person. If he wanted to have any big development, it was almost impossible. Well, you can leave first. Go and arrange the manpower and other matters, under the premise of ensuring the safety of the heavenly crystal and that person. Think of a way to complete the task with the least amount of movement and cost. Zhang Dongxing solemnly ordered, then waved his hand to dismiss Tong Wuli. Here, the itinerary for the northern island was set. The Tiandan Pavilion was almost finished. Hou Guanqi and Kai Zhongyang had to continue their preparations, so they left. Wei Shenjin stayed for a while, then left the Tiandan Pavilion. After waiting for everyone to leave, Lin Yi also left the Tiandan Pavilion and quickly flew towards the seaside. With his speed, he would soon arrive. The reason why he took advantage of the night to come to the seaside was not to find some romance, but to release Languza. If he suddenly appeared in the Tiandan Pavilion, it would not be easy to explain the origin of Languza. Moreover, Lin Yi needed Languza's identity as the overlord of the sea. This trip to the northern island, with Languza cruising in the nearby sea, it was estimated that it would be much smoother, so he did not hesitate to secretly put Languza in the sea, waiting for a chance encounter in the future. Then Languza could reasonably follow him. After coming out of the space of the jade pendant, Languza stretched his waist, making a crackling sound, then curiously looked around a few times and said, "Boss, this is the heavenly island? There doesn't seem to be anything fun here. It's no different from the small Jianghu." Lin Yi faintly smiled and said, "Languza, I have mentioned to you before that I will let you cruise in the surrounding sea and help me collect some inner dawn of sea beasts. Now, you have to act as a person to protect the treasure ship from a distance. When we reach the shore, you can find any excuse to meet me." Although Languza did not want to leave Lin Yi, since Lin Yi had made a decision, he would certainly not oppose it. He could only hope that there were enough sea beasts in the sea. In any case, he was also a member of the royal family of the Endless Sea. If he could show off here, it would be a very satisfying thing. Moreover, he would be protecting the surroundings, not far from Lin Yi, so there was no need to worry too much. "Languza, your strength is indeed at the pinnacle in the immemorial underworld. However, there are countless people who are stronger than you on the heavenly stage island. Not only are they at the mountain opening stage, but there are also many at the earth opening stage and even the sea splitting stage, especially in the depths of the various seas. Even though you are a dragon in the sea, you must not be careless," Lin Yi said to Languza with a dignified expression. The mysterious ascension late stage was not weak, but compared to the real experts in the sea, it was still an ant. For example, the Five Evils dragon was thousands of times stronger than Languza, but he still hid in his nest and did not dare to come out. Of course, it was also because he was targeted by the vermilion bird. Otherwise, it should not be too big a problem for him to become the overlord of a region. Languza did not care and said with a smile, "Boss, don't worry. I, Languza, have always been cautious in doing things. I will never do things that I am not sure of. But once I do it, I will definitely succeed. With my peerless talent, I will soon be able to improve my strength and become the real king of the sea." Lin Yi smiled faintly. Lenguza was cautious in doing things? This joke was not bad. However, his talent was indeed quite strong. It should not be too difficult for a mutated sea dragon to break through the mysterious ascension stage and enter the mountain opening stage. If it could evolve into a real sea dragon again, the sea splitting stage and earth opening stage would not be too big of an obstacle. Okay, go be careful. When you enter the mountain opening stage, come back and follow me again. Lin Yi smiled and waved his hand at Lenguza and set a goal for him. This was not a difficult thing for Lenguza. After the sea dragon returned to the sea, leveling up was a relatively simple thing. It would not take long for him to achieve this goal. Lenguza patted his chest and laughed loudly at Lin Yi. Boss, don't worry, Lenguza, still want to go everywhere with you to play. It's just the mountain opening stage. It won't take a few months. If he was still in the small Jianghu of ancient times, Lenguza would definitely not dare to say such big words. Every small stage of the mysterious ascension stage could not be broken through without decades of accumulation. But after arriving at the heavenly island, Lenguza clearly felt that this place was different from the small Jianghu of ancient times. Although he could not explain it clearly, he could feel that his cultivation had a desire to soar into the sky. Perhaps it was because the spiritual qi here was more abundant, or perhaps it was because the rules of heaven and earth on the heavenly island were more complete. There was less suppression on the strength of the realm. Chapter 5802. Under normal circumstances, the two could use the communication bead to contact each other. In order to prevent special situations, Lin Yi and Lenguza agreed not to use the communication bead at sea, and then let him leave Zhongdao. After returning to Tiandan Pavilion, Lin Yi began to refine the 6th and 7th grade elixirs. On the one hand, it was for Tiandan Pavilion to sell, and on the other hand, it was also to prepare for the auction. Of course, if he wanted to use elixirs to raise the funds to buy the Spirit Gathering Branch and the Soul Nourishing Wood, the 6th and 7th grade elixirs were probably not enough. Although the Thunder Xian Pill was precious, if he wanted to buy treasures like the Spirit Gathering Branch and the Soul Nourishing Wood with it, it must be accumulated in quantity. Lin Yi did not want to refine all his Thunder Xian Rattan into Thunder Xian Pill, and then exchange it for the Spirit Gathering Branch and the Soul Nourishing Wood. It was too wasteful. The best way, of course, was to refine the 1st grade elixirs of the Soul Nourishing Wood. For example, the Solid Earth Pill, which could be used by the Earth Opening Stage, or the Mountain Gazing Pill, which was used to comprehend the breakthrough of the mysterious ascending stage to the Mountain Opening Stage. It was a pity that although Lin Yi had the prescriptions of these two elixirs, he did not have the materials to refine them. The preciousness of these materials was indeed incomparable to the Spirit Gathering Branch and the Soul Nourishing Wood, but it was more precious and rare than the Thunder Xian Rattan. After a night of refining elixirs, Lin Yi handed all the elixirs to Tian Chan. However, he heard that Shanghai Laner was picked up by Tian Chan last night. It seemed that there was something urgent. Originally, Shanghai Laner was going to say goodbye to Lin Yi, but she heard that he was refining elixirs in seclusion, so she did not disturb him. She directly followed Ramjia, who came to pick her up, back to the North Island. Hearing that the person who came was Ramjia, Lin Yi was not worried that Shanghai Laner would be in danger. In the whole North Island, except for Tian Chan, Ramjia was probably the last person who would hurt Shanghai Laner. He did not know what happened in the North Island that made Tian Chan take Lan Air back so urgently. Lin Yi thought that when he passed the North Island this time, he must go and have a look, but now he could only put it aside. If Tian Chan needed his help, Ramjia should wait for him to come out. Since he did not say anything, it meant that the matter was not urgent enough for Lin Yi to help. Seeing that there was no change in Han Jingjing, Lin Yi went out again and went to Alchemy Hall to look for Ho Guanqi. Ho Guanqi had taken the initiative to go to the auction in the far North Island, so he was also packing at the moment. He was a little surprised by Lin Yi's sudden visit. "Brother Lin, why do you suddenly come to me?" Ho Guanqi greeted him with a smile. If everything went well, They would be on the boat together tonight. Now that Lin Yi came, it must be for something. Lin Yi smiled and cupped his fist, saying, "Brother Ho, I took the liberty to visit you. Don't you welcome me?" "How could it be? You are a rare guest that I can't even invite. Come in and sit down." Ho Guanqi laughed and pulled Lin Yi in. After asking someone to serve spiritual tea, he asked, "Brother, you are not here just to chat with me, are you?" "Chatting is also one of my goals, but I still have something I need Brother Ho's help with." Lin Yi did not stand on ceremony and revealed his purpose with a smile. "It's like this. I came this time to ask Brother Ho if there are any mountain-gazing stones in the alchemy hall. If there are, can you sell some to me? Brother Lin wants to refine the mountain-gazing pill. With your cultivation, you really should get ready." Ho Guanqi was slightly startled, but then he felt relieved. Lin Yi was already at the peak of the late stage of mysterious ascension. It was normal for him to prepare to comprehend the mountain-gazing pill of the mountain opening stage in advance. The name mountain-gazing stone sounded like a stone, but it was actually a type of spirit fruit. It was just that its appearance was very similar to a stone, so it had such a name. To be precise, it should be called mountain-gazing fruit. However, this mountain-gazing fruit was extremely rare, much more precious than the lightning xianvine. Even the alchemy hall might not have it. Lin Yi was just asking with the mentality of trying it out. He didn't really expect to get the mountain-gazing stone. Unexpectedly, Ho Guanqi nodded. "If it's mountain-gazing stones, the alchemy hall does have some in reserve. This thing was left behind by my master, and other than him, no one else would use it. There should be 2 left." Lin Yi was delighted. He didn't think that the alchemy hall would actually have mountain-gazing stones. As expected of the pale god Zhang Liju's territory, there were many good things. As for 2 mountain-gazing stones, that was definitely enough. Lin Yi knew that 1 stone was enough for him to refine 5 to 6 mountain-gazing pills. As long as he could get one, he wouldn't have to worry about not having enough spirit jades for the future auctions. "Brother Ho, I wonder if this mountain-gazing stone of the alchemy hall can be transferred to me? How many spirit stones do you need? Just tell me." Lin Yi didn't hide his desire for the mountain-gazing stone. If it were someone else, of course, he wouldn't speak like this. But since it was Ho Guanqi, it didn't matter. He wouldn't raise the price to Lin Yi no matter what. Ho Guanqi hesitated for a moment before saying with a bitter smile, "Brother Lin, if it's my own, there's no harm in giving these 2 mountain-gazing stones to you. However, you also know that this isn't mine. Instead, it's something that Master left in the pill hall as a reserve. If there's someone in our pill hall who can refine the mountain-gazing pill, it's fine to use it." Lin Yi understood immediately. If he wanted to use the mountain-gazing stone to refine the pill, he first had to become a disciple of the alchemy hall. As for how they used the resources and what they needed to trade, that wasn't important. He wasn't even a disciple of the alchemy hall, so it was impossible for him to get the mountain-gazing stone. Seeing Lin Yi's disappointed look, Ho Guanqi gritted his teeth and said, "Brother Lin, if you were to refine the mountain-gazing pill, how confident are you?" Lin Yi was slightly startled. Although he hadn't refined the mountain-gazing pill before, it wasn't that the Shen Nong cauldron hadn't refined a first-grade, profound rank pill before. It shouldn't be too difficult to refine it. If it was only 1 furnace, the success rate couldn't be guaranteed. If it was 2 furnaces, the success rate wouldn't fluctuate much after the correction. Brother Ho, the mountain-gazing pill is a first-grade, profound rank pill. I think the success rate is more than 60%. Lin Yi casually said a conservative number. Then his eyes lit up. Could it be that Brother Ho has a way for me to refine the mountain-gazing pill? Chapter 5803. I see. Lin Yi was impressed by this rule, and of course he was even more impressed by Zhang Liju, who had set up this store. High-level treasures might not have much of a circulation, but low-level herbs were enough for most disciples to have to worry about not having enough ingredients to concoct pills. With this rule in place, the storehouse would only get bigger and bigger. It was a pity that Ho Guanqi wasn't a mystic first-level refiner, and he didn't have the right to exchange for the mountain gazing stone. Lin, he didn't know what he was talking about. Ho Guanqi didn't want to keep him in suspense. He continued speaking to Lin Yi. With my identity in the hall, I can use a mountain gazing stone to concoct pills. Of course, the rule is that I have to exchange with something of equal value, or exchange with points. That's not a problem. The problem is that while I can exchange for it, I have to return the corresponding pill first. Lin Yi understood instantly. No wonder Ho Guanqi asked him about his chances of success. If he couldn't guarantee success, then Ho Guanqi wouldn't be able to return the pill, and that would cause problems. Brother Ho, how many pills do you need for a mountain gazing stone to complete the task? And what should I use to exchange for it? Lin Yi naturally wouldn't make things difficult for Ho Guanqi. As long as he could concoct the mountain gazing pill, Lin Yi believed that his Shinnon cauldron would be able to concoct more than what he needed. Ho Guanqi smiled. Don't worry about the exchange. I'll take care of that. As for the mountain gazing pill, it'll be good enough if we can return one to the hall. We don't need many. After all, it's not easy to concoct the mountain gazing pill, and you have a 60% chance of success. One mountain gazing stone should be able to concoct 2 or 3 pills, right? Lin Yi calmed down. 5 sets of ingredients, and the Shinnon cauldron might be able to concoct 7 mountain gazing pills. Other than the uncertainty of the first attempt, Lin Yi estimated that he would have at least 4 or 5, and giving Ho Guanqi 2 would be no problem. In actuality, Ho Guanqi was a bit worried. What he didn't tell Lin Yi was that if he failed to apply for resources beyond his level, he'd have to pay double the penalty, and he wouldn't be able to go to the storage for 2 years to trade for materials, especially if the materials he traded weren't for his own use. The consequences were even more serious. Helping Lin Yi this time, Ho Guanqi was indeed taking a huge risk. He might be Zhang Liju's disciple, but making a mistake like this in the Hall of Elixirs still wasn't something he could talk about. If Lin Yi knew about this, he wouldn't have asked Ho Guanqi to get the mountain gazing stone for himself. He'd rather sell all the lightning Xianvine than let Ho Guanqi get into trouble. Brother Ho, please rest assured, a mountain gazing pill is absolutely not a problem. As for the materials to be exchanged, I really don't have anything that can compare to the mountain gazing stone. I wonder if this piece of spiritual sense, grass root, can do it? Lin Yi took out a flat jade box he'd prepared, and in it was a palm-sized and 2-finger-thick spirit grass. He passed it to Ho Guanqi casually, thinking that this should be more than enough to exchange for the mountain gazing stone, right? After all, the spirit grass's ability to refine one's spirit ignored levels. Even Earth opening level could use it. Ho Guanqi's face changed, and he quickly took it with both hands. After opening the jade box, he cried out in shock. It really is the legendary spirit grass root. Although he hadn't seen the spirit grass root before, the waves of mysterious aura that was enough to cause spirit ripples made him completely sure that this was the legendary spirit grass root. Brother Lin, where did you get this kind of treasure? Such a big piece of spirit grass root, not to mention 1 mountain gazing stone. Even 10 mountain gazing stones wouldn't be enough to exchange for it. Ho Guanqi closed the jade box excitedly, wanting to return it to Lin Yi, but he seemed reluctant. Brother Ho, you know about the spirit grass root? Although it's very good to use the spirit grass root to refine the spirit grass root, it's not enough to exchange for 10 mountain gazing stones, right? Lin Yi looked at Ho Guanqi strangely. He didn't know why the spirit grass root made him so excited. This was just a small piece that he casually cut off, and he was already so excited. If Ho Guanqi saw the entire spirit grass root in the jade pendant space, wouldn't he faint directly? Brother Lin, you didn't directly use the spirit grass root to refine the spirit grass root, right? Ho Guanqi looked at Lin Yi with a sluggish face. His eyes were full of the look of looking at a prodigal son. Lin Yi said in his heart, weren't we talking about the mountain gazing stone? Why are we getting further and further away from the spirit grass root? But looking at Ho Guanqi's expression, Lin Yi also wanted to know. The spirit grass root wasn't directly used to refine the spirit. Was there any other use? Brother Ho, I did directly use the spirit grass root to refine the spirit. Is there anything wrong with it? In terms of alchemy knowledge, Lin Yi really couldn't compare to Ho Guanqi. Although he had Zhang Liju's alchemy notes, it was only compiled in the secular world. The basic theory was indeed incomparably strong in other aspects until now it has slowly become insufficient. After Ho Guanqi heard Lin Yi's words, he was simply heartbroken. Hey, Brother Lin, it's not that I want to criticize you. You are already a mystic class alchemy master. How can you do such a reckless thing? The spirit grass root is a legendary treasure. You actually used it directly to refine the spirit. It's simply too wasteful. Haven't you heard of the spirit tempering pill? Lin Yi suddenly blushed. His title as a mystic class alchemy master really didn't live up to the name. If there was no Han Jingjing, he wouldn't be able to refine the pill at all. As for what the spirit tempering pill was, he really hadn't heard of it. Ho Guanqi sighed, and without waiting for Lin Yi to speak, he continued, I can't blame you for not knowing, although the spirit tempering pill recipe is still circulated. But the spirit grass and spirit grass root have long been extinct in the Heavenly Island, so this spirit tempering pill is now not heard by many people. Plus the Heavenly Island doesn't pay too much attention to the cultivation of the spirit. Saying that the spirit tempering pill has been lost doesn't matter. Brother Ho, you mean the spirit grass root can be refined into the spirit tempering pill? And the effect is even better than directly using the spirit grass root to refine the spirit? Lin Yi has already understood, and his heart was also a little regretful. It seems that when there is nothing to do, he still needs to collect more elixir recipes and alchemy books. Otherwise, the next time he gets a treasure, it will be wasted in vain. Chapter 5804. Ho Guanqi sighed again and said, It's more than just excellent. Your spiritual awareness grass roots can be divided into at least 30 or 40 portions of spirit tempering pill's main material. If you directly use these spiritual awareness grass roots to quench your divine sense, then after refining the spirit tempering pill, there will be at least 50 to 60% of the effect. You should be able to understand the difference, right? Lin Yi was suddenly shocked. He knew how many spiritual awareness grass roots he had wasted. Although there were still a lot of spiritual awareness grass roots in the space of the jade pendant, it was inevitable that he would feel some pain. Ho Guanqi said that there were 30 or 40 portions of materials here. Then the Shinnon cauldron could at least refine 40 or 50 spirit tempering pills. Wouldn't the effect be even stronger? However, thinking that without the spiritual awareness grass roots to quench his divine sense, he would not be able to integrate it so smoothly in the ancient small Jianghu, his heart calmed down a lot. Anyway, there were so many spiritual awareness grass roots. It didn't matter if he used some. One more point is the most important. Directly using the spiritual awareness grass roots to quench the divine sense is a very painful thing. Brother Lin, I really admire you for being able to persist if you use the spirit tempering pill. This pain can be reduced at least 10 times. Ho Guanqi gave a thumbs up to Lin Yi, apparently really admired Lin Yi for being able to endure such pain. Lin Yi suddenly did not know whether to laugh or cry. Really uncultured, really terrible. It turned out that the pain of quenching the divine sense could be completely avoided. He thought that it was necessary to experience it in order to become stronger. But the result was not the case at all. Ho Guanqi calmed his mood and handed the jade box to Lin Yi and said, Brother Lin, this thing is too precious. It is not worth exchanging it for the mountain gazing stone. You should keep it. Even if you want to exchange, 1/10 of the size is enough. Lin Yi did not take the jade box and directly pushed it back and said, Brother Ho, you can keep it if you can exchange it for the mountain gazing stone. If there are any extra, consider it a gift for me to Brother Ho. If Brother Ho can help me find the pill recipe of the spirit tempering pill, that would be even better. Since Ho Guanqi could know about the spirit tempering pill, it was very likely that he had seen the pill recipe of the spirit tempering pill. Lin Yi still had so many spiritual awareness grass roots in his hands. Instead of throwing them in the jade pendant space, it would be better to find a way to refine the spirit-tempering pill. Compared to the mountain-gazing pill, the purifying spirit pill was probably more popular. If Ho Guanqi could find the recipe for it, he wouldn't care about the mountain-gazing stone. When Ho Guanqi heard that Lin Yi wanted the pill recipe of the spirit-tempering pill, he immediately understood that he still had some spiritual awareness grassroots on him. Otherwise, what was the use of the pill recipe? Since Lin Yi still had the spiritual awareness grassroots, Ho Guanqi was no longer polite. He really wanted the spiritual awareness grassroots in this jade box. The key was that the difficulty of refining the spirit-tempering pill was not high. At most, he had just entered the yellow grade, 7th grade. He could barely try to refine it. Brother Lin, then this big brother will not be polite. The pill recipe of the spirit-tempering pill, we have it in the pill hall. You can exchange it with contribution points because the spiritual awareness grass is extinct on the Heaven Stage Island. So the exchange rate is not high. You wait a moment. I will immediately go and get the mountain-gazing stone and the pill recipe of the spirit-tempering pill for you. Ho Guanqi put away the jade box and immediately stood up and said to Lin Yi, in exchange for the mountain-gazing stone, Ho Guanqi was not prepared to use the spiritual awareness grassroots. This thing was too precious. He would rather use his other spiritual grass to exchange for it. As for the slightly illegal place, he did not care much about it, but now he did not care about it. Lin Yi thanked Ho Guanqi and watched Ho Guanqi leave in a hurry. He originally wanted to say that he did not want the mountain-gazing stone. He just needed the pill recipe of the spirit-tempering pill. Anyway, refining the spirit-tempering pill would be enough to raise enough funds. But after thinking about it, the mountain-gazing pill would be used sooner or later. If he did not refine it, it would be better to keep it for his own use. So he did not say anything. After waiting for half an hour or so, Ho Guanqi walked in quickly and handed a small jade box to Lin Yi with a smile on his face. There was also a pill recipe made of parchment paper. Brother Lin, this is the mountain-gazing stone and the pill recipe of the spirit-tempering pill. It's a pity that with my authority I can only exchange for a mountain-gazing stone. Otherwise I would have given both to you. Ho Guanqi said with some embarrassment. The spiritual awareness grass root made him feel that he had taken a big advantage. Lin Yi did not care, but he could not ignore it. Brother Ho, don't say that. With the mountain-gazing stone and the pill recipe of the spirit-tempering pill, you have already helped me a lot. Well, you go ahead and sort it out. I also have to go back and sort it out. See you on the ship. Lin Yi got what he wanted and immediately got up to leave. This time he just planned to ask. He did not expect that not only did he get a mountain-gazing stone, but also accidentally got the pill recipe of the spirit-tempering pill. Lin Yi could not wait to go back and try it. If he could really refine the spirit-tempering pill, Lin Yi was ready to leave a part of it for Tian Chan and Sydney so that they could also temper their spiritual awareness. Unfortunately, apart from the Heaven's Fortune battle art, he did not have any spiritual awareness cultivation methods suitable for them to cultivate. Otherwise, with the spirit-tempering pill, they would be able to get twice the result with half the effort. Okay, then we will see you on the ship in the evening. Take care. Ho Guanqi sent Lin Yi to the door, waved goodbye, turned to pack up his luggage, and then prepared to study the refining of the spirit-tempering pill. Of course, Ho Guanqi did not have the heaven-defying function of Lin Yi's Shinnon cauldron, and now there was no way to refine the pill. He could only study it first, and after boarding the ship, he would try to refine the spirit-tempering pill. It was estimated that the time to go to the extreme North Island should be enough for him to refine it once or twice. Lin Yi originally wanted to go to the Five Elements Commerce to visit Kaizhongyang, and let him also collect the materials and pill recipe of the profound Grade 1 pill. But now it was not necessary. With the pill recipe of the spirit-tempering pill, plus the large spiritual awareness grass root in his hand, he certainly did not need to go to Kaizhongyang now. It was not too late to collect it after boarding the ship. Back to the Tiandan Pavilion, Lin Yi and Tian Chan and Sydney greeted each other, then returned to the room again to start refining the pill. After taking out the Shinnon cauldron and entering the formula of the spirit-tempering pill, the automatic alchemy system began to generate the alchemy script. The best ratio was to refine 4 sets of materials at the same time, and it was estimated that 5 pills could be refined. In addition to the spiritual awareness grassroot, the rest of the auxiliary spirit grasses Lin Yi had reserves, so there was no problem in this regard. Taking out a thumb-thick spiritual awareness grassroot, Lin Yi put the rest of the spirit grasses together into the Shinnon cauldron and began to condense the pill fire to refine the spirit tempering pill. However, to Lin Yi's surprise, this time the alchemy only started for 5 minutes and was declared a failure. Chapter 5805. Fortunately, the system analyzed the reason for the failure and told Lin Yi, the refinement of the spirit cleansing pill requires the combination of the spirit cleansing flame and qi refinement flame, generating new refinement script. Please wait a moment, Lin Yi bro. It required the spirit cleansing flame and qi refinement flame to be used together? Lin Yi was speechless. If that was the case, then wouldn't he be the only one on Sky-class island who could concoct the spirit cleansing pill? Even Zhang Liju wouldn't be able to conjure the spirit cleansing pill, right? But it was hard to say for this cheap Shifu of his, who knew he might have some miraculous abilities. Speaking of which, he should remind Hou Guanqi so that he wouldn't waste the spirit grassroot. But Lin Yi knew that he wouldn't be able to concoct the pill today, so he wasn't in a rush. He'd tell him when he got on the boat, and he'd also tell him and Kai Zhongyang how to conjure the spirit cleansing pill fire. 2 minutes later, the new refinement script was generated, and Lin Yi cleaned out the residue in the Shinnon cauldron and put in the 4 portions of the spirit cleansing pill ingredients. He then started to multitask, injecting pure qi into the cauldron and the spirit cleansing pill with the other. Thanks to the experience of conjuring the super refinement flame bomb, Lin Yi was able to multitask easily. He followed the instructions of the system and alternated the 2 types of energy. Of course, most of the time he had to use both pure qi and spirit cleansing at the same time. In terms of difficulty, it was even harder than concocting a mystic-class pill like the Earth Solid pill. Lin Yi estimated that even if Hou Guanqi learned how to conjure the spirit cleansing pill fire, he might not be able to concoct the spirit cleansing pill. Although this pill was classified as a golden class 7th level pill, that was an ancient classification. With the current difficulty, it wouldn't be strange to say that it was a mystic class 2nd level pill. Besides, the most important thing was that Hou Guanqi learning how to conjure the spirit cleansing pill fire now was the same as starting from 0. Ding! 7 soul tempering pills have been obtained, 2 more than expected. All of them are of the highest quality. Analyzing the reason, Lin Yi was overjoyed. He originally thought that after the first failure, the new script would need to be tested a few more times before it could be perfected. Who knew that he would directly produce a super perfect pill refinement? Not only was the quality of all the pills unique, but even the quantity was 2 more than the original estimate. The analysis of the cause of the abnormality is complete. Due to the fact that the main ingredient used is of a higher grade, an overflow occurred. If the main ingredient of the same grade is used in the next pill refinement, the amount used can be reduced by half, or the amount of supplementary ingredients can be doubled. I see. I understand now. Lin Yi nodded and whispered he really understood. In the soul tempering pill recipe, the main material was actually the spiritual consciousness grass, but Lin Yi directly used the spiritual consciousness grass root. It would be strange if there was no overflow. In fact, it was a waste of the spiritual qi of the spiritual sense, grass root. If it was divided into 2 alchemy, that piece of spiritual sense grass root should be able to produce 10 pills. But it didn't matter. Lin Yi didn't have much, but he had a lot of spiritual sense grass roots. Immediately taking out the jade bottle, he put away the 6 soul tempering pills, and then left one and swallowed it directly. Before giving it to Tian Chan and Sydney, Lin Yi must try it himself first, so that if there was any problem, it would be too late to regret it. The pill still had the warmth of the freshly refined pill, and after entering Lin Yi's mouth, it turned into a warm current flowing into his abdomen, and then rose to his knowledge sea and began to temper Lin Yi's spiritual sense. After experiencing the painful tempering of the spiritual sense grass root, the soul tempering pill was simply gentle like a lover's caress. In a short period of time, Lin Yi's spiritual sense seemed to have condensed a little, and there was no side effect. Lin Yi really wanted to cry, but had no tears. If he had this pill recipe earlier, he wouldn't have to suffer so much. But then again, if Han Jingjing hadn't upgraded the automatic alchemy system and included the spiritual sense pill flame, even if Lin Yi had the pill recipe, he might not have been able to refine the soul tempering pill. Good stuff. The soul tempering pill is really a good thing. If I take it out to auction, I don't believe it won't sell for a good price. Lin Yi opened his eyes, smiled to himself, and then began to refine the soul tempering pill again. This time he reduced the amount of spiritual sense grass root by half, and sure enough, he refined 5 pills, and they were still of special quality. The Shinnon cauldron with the automatic alchemy system was so heaven-defying. After refining 3 batches of soul-tempering pills in a row, Lin Yi stopped. 16 special quality soul-tempering pills. With the strength of Tian Chan and Sydney's spiritual sense, it was enough for them to cultivate for 2 or 3 months. When he returned from the extreme North Island, he would give them some more. Seeing that there was still some time before dark, and Kai Zhongyang had not come to inform him that he could board the ship, Lin Yi simply took out the mountain-gazing stone and prepared to refine the mountain-gazing pill. Lin Yi was not in a hurry to refine this kind of pill, but Hou Guanqi still needed to have a mountain-gazing pill, so he still wanted to refine it as soon as possible and hand it over to Hou Guanqi. After the failure of the spirit-tempering pill, the automatic alchemy system began to automatically include the divine sense alchemy fire and the true qi alchemy fire into the scope of calculation when analyzing the alchemy recipe and forming the alchemy script. Therefore, there were actually 2 alchemy fire refining methods for this mountain-gazing pill. In other words, both the spiritual sense pill fire and the true qi pill fire could be used to refine this kind of pill. It all depended on which one to choose. Anyway, the result was the same. In this regard, Lin Yi did not care. Anyway, he was already used to using true qi and spiritual sense. Either one was fine. It was just that using true qi was easier. When the sky was dark, the mountain-gazing pill was finally refined successfully. Lin Yi was pleasantly surprised to find that, although it was his first time refining the mountain-gazing pill, in the end, there were actually 9 pills, and all of them were top-grade mountain-gazing pills of special quality. No one would believe it if he said it out. Originally, the script expected 7 pills, which made Lin Yi very happy. After all, a mountain-gazing stone was only a little more than 5 pills, but in the end it almost doubled. This was probably because of the 2 alchemy fire refining methods, which made the efficacy of the pills more perfectly fused together. In a happy mood, Lin Yi put away the mountain-gazing pill, cleaned up the Shinnon cauldron, and did not continue refining pills. Instead, he went to Han Jingjing's room. Han Jingjing was still the same. Nothing had changed. Lin Yi looked at her calm face and smiled. Jingjing, thanks to your automatic alchemy system, I don't have to worry about not having enough spiritual jades to buy the spirit gathering branch. Last time you went to Earth to save me. This time, let me save you. I will be back soon. Lin Yi smiled and said, Jingjing, thanks to your automatic alchemy system, I don't have to worry about not having enough spiritual jades to buy the spirit gathering branch. Last time you went to Earth to save me. This time, let me save you.